All right, everybody, welcome to this Friday edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. And before I go around, it's a full studio, so I'm just giving everybody the heads up. Everybody has a familiar voice except for Jazz. So, Jazz, I'm going to let you start because I don't think last week you got the space you needed. Jazz, give them your background. Tell them where you come from, school, all that good stuff.
Okay, my name is Jazz. It's not actually short for Jasmine. It's just Jazz. I come from Tuskegee University. I major in communication, and I just want to do radio and be in the field of media and all things of that nature.
So Jazz pulled a fast one on me. She's supposed to be doing PR and stuff, and then she had one serving of sitting on air, and now she beats everybody in the studio. When I walked in here, she was all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. But you know what? That gets you a lot of places around here on the Leadership Blend and the Leadership Blend Media Company. So kudos to her. Congratulations. You fought your way on this panel. Hope you can hold your weight. All right, so everybody else, my correspondents.
Shahid. Carl Andrew.
Simone Cherie.
Double R.
Yes, Double R is back.
We in here.
He's back. So you know how he gets all overzealous when he's back.
About to get real.
He gets overzealous when he's back. All right, Simone. So what do we have on the rundown?
It's a crazy news week, so we have a lot to talk about with regard to whether or not we will have a Great Wall of America.
That's what we called it?
Yes.
The devil is a liar.
We will have a slight conversation about the refund situation with the IRS. We'll also talk a lot about the 2020 campaign season, everything that's heating up there, and a little tech news and business news for our favorite company.
No, your favorite
that we
company.
may get to be sponsored by. You better let me keep going with Amazon.
You know what? If you can get a sponsorship, I will love them. But before them, they're a Daystar to me, and everybody knows how I feel about it. They're Daystar from the Terminator movies that built the robots that destroyed the world because the robots decided they didn't need us. And I feel like Amazon is going to do that for us. So it's great. Trump is going to take us to hell in a handbasket, and Amazon is going to make sure we get there by artificial intelligence.
So
there you have it.
It might not just be them.
So before we swallow all this nihilism and negativity, there was some news just this morning. Very recently, in the last hour, Trump did declare a national emergency, which he'd been threatening to do.
He officially did?
He officially declared.
Oh, good God.
On my way in
I said
today.
it before we came on the air.
Yeah,
Oh, good Lord.
So he declared a national emergency that will allow him to access billions of dollars to build a border wall that Congress refused to give him. Although Nancy Pelosi did make a funny little jab about giving him $1 earlier in the week, I really thought this may have come down to some sort of slightly more compromise, but not in time enough for our president. So he is basically made a televised announcement this morning from the Rose Garden saying that he would sign the declaration. He wants to protect the United States, he says, from the flow of drugs, criminals, and illegal immigrants that have been coming across the border from Mexico. He says, quote, "We're going to confront the national security crisis on our southern border, and we're going to do it in one way or another." He said, "It's an invasion." So he'll be able to get $3.6 billion for military construction projects to build a border wall. And he does, the White House, I should say, is saying on his behalf that for the rest of the money he'll need, he's going to use more traditional methods. So we know that even though he's asking for a certain amount, there's going to be a lot more required, and they don't imagine he'll do anything else this drastic to get the rest of it. But yeah, he's getting that wall.
Okay, so let me paint a different picture. So the report came out today. This is where this money is coming from this national emergency. Now, the ideology is when he declares a national emergency, he can bypass everybody, which that in itself makes me nervous. So he doesn't have to get approval from anybody to pull money from certain places. So he's going to pull, or in ideology, this is where money's coming from. 1.375 billion in Homeland Security Appropriations Bill, $600 million from the Treasury Department's Drug Forfeit Fund, $2.5 billion in Defense Department's Drug Intercation Program. $3.5 billion from the Defense Department military construction budget. So that's where that money's coming from. Yeah, some of that stuff, yeah. So that's where that money. It's not just magically being pulled out of the air. It's being pulled from other places.
But when you become specific about what these places are, you listen to the names of these places, and you realize that they don't do much.
That's fine. But what if a national crisis actually does happen? And now you done pull the money from all these places.
Yeah, well, it's
and
called.
with our luck, with what usually happens, that's exactly what will happen.
Well, when you're talking about multiple military bases in every single state in our country, what else are we building?
Again, what if we actually have a natural disaster that destroys half the country?
Are you talking about? You talking about like the last natural disaster that happened in this country?
Like a real one.
Are you talking about
like
the one that wiped out most of Puerto Rico?
I'm not really talking about Puerto Rico. I'm talking about in general.
Are you talking about the one that hit New Orleans?
I'm not talking about just single states. I'm talking about what if something wipes out the whole eastern seaboard or something? Like, and we really have to need.
Are you talking about like because California about to fall off the country?
So
Again.
he's minimizing all of these events, and loads of people, hundreds of people have died. So I don't want to minimize.
No,
I'm
all
not
of those were very serious
minimizing.
No,
I'm
I'm
just
saying-
saying, what if
but-
something like
but what
wipes
I'm
out
saying-
the eastern seaboard or
I'm
something,
saying-
and you have to repair 5 or 6 states versus single states? That's what I'm saying. And with our luck, that's probably what would happen.
Well-
He pulls this money, then something like that's going to happen. We just like, we don't have any money.
I think if he's probably still gonna be the president. He'll do the same thing that other presidents did.
they didn't declare it nationally.
It's on your state.
One thing though is that he's talked about using at least one of those organizations. I think it was the
military, the building.
not for the construction projects. The other location the money would be pulled from for the opioid crisis, because he said he was going to actually implement this, not just at like the local level as different states want to deal with it, but like at the federal level to attack the opioid crisis. He was going to enable the police to do more, meaning give them more resources and stuff like that. I feel like some of that's got to be coming from the same bucket, because the federal law enforcement agencies are really working with state law enforcement to enforce everything from ICE to help them with the
which is
opioid
kinda
crisis
creepy.
and making sure there's not Narcan everywhere. So it's like eventually some of this has got to start draining the budget. I don't know when, but you would think it would.
And the question is like, how you don't randomly create budgets like that unless you can create the money, or unless the money has always been there. If you're talking about a place that actually sits, you're talking about like the Fed. Every time there's a raid, the last big raid that they had a couple years ago was $26 million. You don't think that money just sitting in that $600 million somewhere? What else they gonna do with it? What else do you think they do with drug
that
money?
money being accountable.
They don't have to account for it because that money just goes back into a fund or something to fund something else to get another bust like that. You don't just randomly come up on $27 million in a drug bust unless you knew that there was that kind of money there in the first place. And then you don't take that money and put that money and allocate that money to a place where you have all the rest of the drug money unless you already got a plan to use all of that drug money in the first place.
But yeah, I was going to say, but he knew he would have this window to do it, because the way that it works, the budget is there, but it hasn't been appropriated yet.
Like
and so Congress has always been struggling to figure out how they would appropriate it.
They
So
never had
technically-
like a specific place like, no, we're going to put it there. He like, hold on, we just sitting on that kind of money? You remember last year he was going to take it from the national parks. Like, look at all the money that they sitting on. What are you doing? Like,
So, well, I don't know if Trump
everybody
hates the
not
parks or
out here trying to be park rangers.
Trump may,
nobody wants
Trump
to
may like
go,
the park.
But what he's doing, and I hate giving him credit, but he's starting to reveal places that regular people don't pay attention to. Nobody paid attention to the national parks budget, and you
That is
realize
true.
they got $1 billion worth of funding, and they just sitting on it. But most national parks officers don't get paid a lot of money.
That is
They
true.
getting like cop money, like a good 40 and really good benefits maybe, and like a truck, but you can't take it home. Like, they not getting a check for real. So he's starting to point out, like, but look at all these places. Look at what about the money we could take from here? Our country doesn't implement music programs. How about we take it from there? And then people start, well, I want my baby to play trumpet, or I want my baby to play. So he don't take it from there. So he say, how about I just take it from somewhere where we already allocate the most money, defense and military building.
Right.
How about I take it directly from those places? Because they sitting on billions of dollars worth of funding. Let me just
And
take
he
a
also
little
has
tube.
recently, remember, pulling troops back out of Syria, saying we're done, we've defeated ISIS. So he may be imagining
He
that
like, we
there will
won
be money
already.
available now that we are doing that, even though that was very highly contested. But Democrats have responded to this. So Nancy Pelosi said, quote, "This is a power grab by the president. I'm very disappointed in this. He's going beyond the bounds of the law to get what he failed to achieve in Congress." Schumer and Pelosi did vow that they would try to stop the president. They vowed that they would try to overturn his decisions. And they're saying that Congress is not going to sit by and let him, quote, shred the Constitution. So they're going to do it two ways. They're going to introduce legislation to try to block him. And then they are going to try to take legal rules. There's a lot of debate about this because technically the president has the authority to declare a national emergency. So legally, I don't know how you would make that argument unless there's something that is just not obvious that they could probably use to
There's
stand in
always
court.
a loophole.
Well, I'm sure.
But he does have
I'm
this
sure it's about
authority, so-
definitions, like what defines a national.
Well, that's the
emergency.
thing. It's not defined, so that's what they're going to end up debating. Like the Constitution doesn't have a lot to it. Like it's there's lots of amendments now, but it's really not that specific. It's very liberal in terms of what it says. Like when they use words like control or authority or even emergency, that's very subjective. And Republicans did try to say like, listen, we don't want to do this because we're going to end up in a back and forth. Because what's going to happen is if there's a Democratic president next, if they wanted to say like, listen, there's too much gun violence in schools, so this is a national emergency, I'm going to take away all the guns, Republicans would be very worried about it because they want to keep their guns. So it's like it can go both ways. But he's saying that, but he could veto it. Like so with the first route. So if all Nancy can do is to get a bill to say, hey, we want to stop the president can veto all bills. Like, so he could just say
he could just hit her with
he could just flick it right back.
Like
that's my concern. I always call it the open door ideology. That if you open the door for one thing, what else are you going to allow in?
Yeah.
So that's always been.
So the
my
legal
concern.
system is all you can use against the president because, as far as Congress goes, he is the executive branch. So anything Congress may attempt to do, unless they can, get all the Republicans on board, it's not going to work.
But like she said, like if you look at the Constitution, it's written
he
where
can't do that.
even if you read it, it becomes subjective.
Mm-hmm.
So when you create laws to uphold the amendments of the Constitution, they're always created with a loophole.
Well, you gotta have fail safes.
Like that's like the thing with gun control. Like you can't use the First Amendment to go against the Second Amendment. Like because then you can't go like 1-3. You need 1, 2, and 3, and that's kind of what this is going to become. But he's like, yo, I got a couple of these vetoes in my pocket.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna drop
I'm
one
sure he'll
on
use
you.
them.
But you know what's so scary? Look at all the closest people that's standing around him. I haven't heard Pence say a word.
Well, he hadn't said a lot anyways. I mean,
well, no. But the comparison is crazy for what we usually think is an emergency. Because the last time that this was used, this was used for 9/11. It was used for 9/11. It was used for the invasion, the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. It was used leading up to the Gulf War. Like it was used for serious.
And that's my thing. Like those were serious things. Like a wall. Seriously.
Yeah, but you're talking about places where we went. It's not places like where they the 2 times that it was used and we knew about it here, 1990, 2 where they hit the tower the first time, and then in 2001 where they hit it again, same tower, exactly the same way. When you watch how they happen, of course you're going to say that it's a state of emergency.
Yeah.
Everybody's scared.
I was going to say, but everybody was on board back then. Everybody agreed. That's
why they attacked states that big. It's 14 million people in New York. In 1992, it was 10 million people in New York. It grew by 4 million people in less than 20 years. So, of course, you say, oh, no, that's a state of emergency. He's literally saying that a whole nother country can walk into our country. That scares some people. We talked about it before.
I think it's scaring people on the ground, too. I was watching a C-SPAN hearing in the last week, and a lot of the ICE agents, especially the officials that are starting to speak out more now, are like, listen, we don't make the laws. We're agents. We enforce the law. Congress passed it. And this came from, he was getting some grilling from one of the senior legislators, and she was a part of the Judiciary Committee and kind of saying, like, I've had to work with these families in their cases if they were DACA recipients or if they needed to get their paperwork renewed. And sometimes we can't even find the kind of things that you ask for their citizenship. And he's like, we don't ask for anything that we're not legally required to ask for. So he basically put it back on her, like, okay, I know you have a hard time, like, we can't keep people here, but at the same time, we're just following orders. And it's like, that was she didn't pause there, but everybody else did, because it's like, what are they supposed to do?
Because that's the loophole.
It comes from the top.
That's the loophole. The loophole is like, there's the law, the enforcer of the law, and then the person that you're enforcing the law on. Well, as the enforcer of the law doesn't require me to do anything outside of what it requires me to do. What do you expect me to do? And you're starting to see like these ICE agents and these Border Patrol agents like come out like, oh, well, I see my friend die trying to protect her. That stuff, that type of stuff, it is placed in the news. Like, because you never hear about somebody dying in the field on Border Patrol until you do. But then when you pay attention to when you hear about it, like right now or like the last 3 months, when you hear a Border Patrol agent saying that they got hurt in the field or a Border Patrol agent got killed, like when you start to see little stuff like that, it makes you say, well, maybe Trump is literally banking on maybe we do need a wall. He said it when he started talking about like drugs coming across the border. Like this is before they caught Chapo. What Chapo's sending all the drugs and they were getting all the drugs. Maybe we do need and then people start saying maybe in the news and they keep saying it. And then you see Border Patrol agent get hurt. Border Patrol agent get killed. Border Patrol agent disappear in the field. Where they going? Maybe we do need a wall. So it's starting to like romanticize it to the people that's like, well, Trump's right.
Right, and now it's up to the courts, and Trump has been filling the courts with all kind of conservatives
He been
on the
throwing
federal
his
level.
manses
So
in there.
yeah, so it's up to the courts now
And
because
here's
Congress
the
is not
manipulation
gonna.
of
Yeah.
everything, of it all.
Well, this is
told
why
you.
this is basically like you setting up your chess pieces in
Pretty
the right
much.
order.
No,
to-
he cheated.
But I told everybody, though,
He
when...
playing checkers with chess pieces.
But I told them when we went to the government shutdown, I was like, he went out too easily. That's not Trump. I was like, oh, we know, we'll bring it back up. He went out too easily. There was no... I was like, he already has a back plan, and here we are.
Yeah, he on plan B.
And here we are.
He on like plan A1. He on like his plan A was the shutdown, and he's like, okay, all right, implement A1, and now we starting to see it. He threatened another shutdown and was like, you know what, I got you.
But you know what's so pitiful about all of this? He still offered to legalize those 800,000 dreamers, those college.
And it's starting to look petty
and now
for
that's,
Democrats.
But now that's gone.
They
It's
starting to
you're-
look
He's getting the wall
petty.
anyway, and now there's 800,000 less Democratic voters for you.
It's starting
You know
to
what
look
I mean?
petty as hell. Like, it's starting to look very petty for Democrats. Because it's like, hold on, he was going to give almost 1 million people?
Yeah, but they're like, no wall,
And
no
they're
wall,
like,
no
nah,
wall.
because he's trying to build a...
And now he's getting the wall
He's going
anyway.
to get the wall regardless. And you could have got
And that's off the table.
800,000 new voters. And now you just got all these people sitting in limbo. They can't
That's a
do
shame.
anything.
It's a shame.
Because they're threatening to deport people that have visas
Right.
waiting.
Right.
So you're talking about 800,000 people plus people that are here already on working visas or waiting to get their visa renewed that are being threatened to be deported that can vote. That can vote,
Yeah,
that have been here for long periods of time, and they can vote. So now you about to get rid of those people. We got 800,000 people that can't vote. Just because we get a little 600,000 people get out of jail and they come through and they come out some
Yeah,
papers.
Florida,
That don't matter. When
Well,
you're talking about that many people, that 95% of the Democratic vote goes, 95% of the
That
black
vote,
vote,
yeah.
the black vote goes to Democrats. So we don't vote politics. We vote for the party. What about all those other people? That's 100% of
Democratic.
people
Yeah.
that vote for your party.
Well, I'm
Oh,
not
the
even gonna tell
Democrats
you
got
then.
us out?
I'm not even going to tell you that Auntie Maxine already said that she can get Trump's income tax.
Okay.
So clearly, they did exactly what I was hoping they would not do, which is start being
Just
petty
poking at
and
him
just
and
poking
poking
at
at
dumb
him.
stuff
Yeah, we gotta
when
let
there are
that go.
other major stuff. I don't want to spend more time on this. So I got to make sure the interns get what they got. All right. So first up, this is the intern run, the intern mill. So first up is, let's see, Kyle, because he gets to set the stage. All right, Kyle, what you got?
All right, so as y'all know, yesterday marked 1 year of the Parkland shooting at Douglas High School in Parkland. So some states and corporations have expanded background checks, and they've enabled laws to confiscate weapons from individuals at risk. So Florida has a new law where they raised the minimum age to buy a gun to 21. Maryland enacted a red flag law and banned bump stocks. And bump stocks, I told y'all what that was on air. It's like a part of the gun that you take off and put on your shoulder. Oregon, I was looking this up. Have any of you heard of the boyfriend loophole?
Yeah.
No.
What exactly is that? You know?
No.
So it's
Wait.
I was
yeah.
looking it up.
Yeah, if you read it and you hear what it is, they're trying to enact new laws to
Out of the hands of domestic abusers. I
basically.
guess.
So like
Yeah.
if you ever have a domestic case of any kind, simple battery, which is a misdemeanor, you cannot legally purchase or own a gun.
So I guess it was documented how frequently women die at the hands of current and former husbands and boyfriends. So it's the idea that if you've got any of this on your record, that you're not eligible to hold a
Even
gun.
misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simple battery is
Even
a
just
misdemeanor.
threat. Yeah.
Oregon shut that down. Governor Ralph Northam signed a new legislation authorizing a state gun violence license plate. So I guess people are riding around with license plates advocating that they're against guns.
He needs to find something else to do with
Clearly,
his, with
'cause
his Ku Klux Klan wearing hat. So
Yeah,
of
I guess
time.
he's still trying to redeem
I guess he's
himself.
still employed.
Yeah.
Go there.
And as far as corporations, Walmart is raised its legal age to buy guns and ammunition to 21. Dick's Sporting Goods stopped selling assault rifles. Delta Airlines and Hertz no longer give discounts to NRA members. The NRA stands for the National Rifle Association. And Bank of America will no longer lend money to gun makers that manufacture military-style rifles.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know. I've never
Debate
seen it.
debate not gonna lose. The NRA isn't
It's a very
also not
firm
gonna
base.
lose
Very firm base.
because like there Georgia has its version of the NRA, like, and it's black.
There's a lot of black people
Like,
in Georgia NRA. There are.
Yeah.
They have a convention every other
Yeah,
year. The
it's
last year the convention was here. There was quite a few.
Yes,
of us there.
the Georgia Association of Black something. I
Could just be the like there's.
it's called GABA
I don't know.
or something like that.
It's not me
But like there are versions of that all over the country. The problem is if you get all of those versions, that the NRA is the place where all of those versions of the NRA go and meet and agree.
Yep.
When you get that many people to agree, like I'm not the dude that's like, yo, take all the guns, because that wouldn't make sense. That wouldn't make sense. Like it's literally written into the Constitution that I myself can have a gun. You can have a gun. You can have a gun. Now, the way you did, that's why I said like those loopholes, because it's not written as an amendment to an amendment.
Yeah,
that,
no, that's just
yo,
a
if
second,
you slapped
yeah,
your girl
no.
at the crib, you can't get no gun. No. But now states are starting to implement that. The problem is what do you do to law enforcement? Because simple battery is a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
And if you are a cop and you were charged with simple battery, you still have the authority to carry a weapon.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and this.
How you do that?
Yeah.
If
I'd
you
love
got
to know
simple
how
battery,
people-
you can still go to the military. And when you come back for the military, you can legally carry a gun. How you do that?
I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions.
With
to
simple
this, I'm sure
battery,
there
you
are.
can run for governor and president and mayor and senator. We're talking about like little things that, because it's a misdemeanor, you look at it like, that ain't nothing. But it's simple battery. That means that you actually put your hands on somebody. And it was brought down in court that it was just a misdemeanor because she decided not to press charges. But because you put your hands on them, the courts will automatically reduce it to a misdemeanor. But all of those people can have guns. All of those people are the same people that sit and make the laws about guns. They argue against guns. But those people have guns. Like, there is no compromise in this. And that's a whole different type of division in the country. We're already divided enough.
Absolutely.
But now that's going to divide us even more, especially when you have groups of people telling black people that couldn't do anything. You couldn't vote, even though it was a right and it was written into the Constitution. They told you couldn't vote. And then they told you, well, you ain't a slave no more. Barely. 13th Amendment say you still be a slave, you go to jail. Now they telling you that you can't say what you want to say and you can't have no guns, but it's written into law for you to be able to do both of those things.
But a lot of other countries that are like us, like Canada and England and things like that, they don't have guns. Like we're one of very few countries in our same field who do have.
But they don't have that. They also don't have the. When you look at poverty and you look at opportunity, like in Europe, they got little sticks.
I mean, they've been a
walking
stabbing
around.
country. Like, if you look at there was a lot of fervor over this last year, I think, when there was, first of all, so they were one of the first places to get highlighted for using cars as weapons, where people just take cars and plow
And run people over.
for, like, mass violence. But there, in terms of one-on-one violence, there's a lot of stabbings that go on in England, from what I've seen reported. Like, that they don't have guns that the public is allowed to carry. Only law enforcement can carry them.
Yeah, I'm gonna just walk over and shank you real quick though.
So they get creative.
Yeah, I wonder,
Yeah, but
is that
they're
something that
more
most,
angry. Like they're usually like when they upset, like when they hate their job, they drive their car in their job.
But the NRA.
That's what they do.
Which one is worse, that you plow into the job with a car, or you go from the top of the roof and
I
smack
don't
you?
know.
Like,
I don't
50
know.
people.
I don't know.
which is the lesser of two evils? Which one is
The
worse?
NRA is really powerful, though. That's the thing. 'Cause
Yes.
This is
And
an issue
there are some of the number one contributors to anybody running for anything.
Yeah, that's very true.
Are you running? Are you just local office? All right, how much you need? Because
Yeah.
they got checks like that.
Their money is very, very long. I was a card carrying member for many years, many, many years. So the thing about this issue is that
Yo, get you a gun.
it just hasn't been a priority to
Get you a
renew.
gun.
Disgusted that
Get
you
you a
be
gun.
carrying a gun.
The thing about this issue is that there's people who are on the side of really, really, really loving guns, but I think a lot of the middle is just kind of like, well, if you get rid of them, it doesn't affect me. And so I think if you took a good poll, we probably wouldn't have them. But because of how these bills get passed and the people who are fighting to keep them, it's like one of those issues where the less popular, like the minority, really I think has the bank on the market because they're putting in the work to keep us with guns as much as possible. Where there's a lot of people who are kind of like playing. But the more school shootings there are, the more serious I think people become about it.
You have to pick a side. So either the side becomes everybody should be allowed to carry a gun because our safety nets have all been removed. So the likelihood that I can go to the movies and get shot, or the likelihood that I can go to a club and get shot, is so much higher than it used to be that I don't want to say to somebody, if you feel you need a gun, you shouldn't have it. But on the opposite side, people go, well, yeah, but if we make guns more accessible, then this kind of stuff is going to continue to happen. So
Right.
you have to kind of pick a side, or either just stay in the middle. And honestly, I'm one of those in the middle people. If you feel like you need one, go for it. I don't want to be told I can't get one because if things get any worse, I may have to get one. So I don't want you to tell me that I can't get one.
I'm completely against guns.
What do you mean
Speak,
completely?
Kyle. Speak.
Completely. I feel
Speak
like
on it.
if you're like a official, like if you're a cop or something, then you can have one. But like civilians, like regular people like us, I don't feel like we need guns.
Okay.
Okay,
I like
wait.
that.
Before we, so as an African American male, you feel like we don't need guns. I just want clarity. I want to make sure I
don't
want
feel like
clarity.
we
If you
need
think
guns.
about it, maybe if we didn't have guns, cops could quit pretending that they thought they saw us with one and taking us out.
Or
If we
with-
never had them in
or
the first
on the
place,
opposite-
you couldn't
But
pretend
that's also
you couldn't
not
see
true.
them.
on the opposite,
That's
which I'm
also
sure he
not
getting ready to
true.
say.
Or on the opposite, yeah.
Because we've seen that over time. Like, Killer Mike say, like, we've only been 55 years free from apartheid. No, like, we're not free. We've been 55 years not dying as much.
But that has been the number one.
But like that
Defense.
was the tactic for cops, guns. That was their thing. So when Malcolm X told everybody, "Yo, arm yourself," and then Huey P was like, "Hold on, y'all saying that we can't? Hold on, it's written right here." A guy that studied law said that it's written right here that I have the right to carry a gun and arm myself. And then you see a couple years ago where a football player gets shot in the face in a theater that he ain't even in. The shooter in one theater. Like 2 theaters over, and he got hit in the face.
Yeah, because they thought it was him.
He got hit in the face, and everybody
that-
in the theater
it's
said,
like you said,
hold
that
on, if I would
argument-
have had a gun, I would have been able to stop
Yeah,
it.
the argument kind of works on both sides.
And-
though.
and
It's
you-
like,
and that's
you
what
could
I'm saying,
also
you
say,
have to
well, no,
pick-
the gun is the problem in the first.
Yeah,
What do you?
but,
What do
I
you-
mean-
I didn't hear what y'all thought though.
I'm not.
I mean, guns or no guns.
You can't put the kids on the spot,
I want to know what
Simone.
they think. This is important.
Well, you can do Kyle,
This is
but
important
Yeah,
before they
I'm-
end up
I'm
in a
good.
school shooting.
I think I'm with Mr. Ricardo. Basically, what he said.
should call you
I'm not
Mr.
gonna.
I know.
I'm not gonna tell
It's
someone they
so
can't get a
weird.
gun because if they personally feel like they need one, if situations get worse, then they have the right to do so. So, like in my house right now, there's guns all over, locked up and stuff like that. But that's because my dad was in the military. and
I was about to say,
probably-
what kind of
Oh, that's
gangsters live in
what's
your
up.
house?
That's
Like my dad was in the military.
Respect.
Like
Thank you for his
we
service.
go to
Thank
the
you for his
shooting
service.
range and things of that nature. So he wants me to know how to take care of myself when I leave the house. So.
Okay.
But I feel like
And the
you would-
reformer?
I am not a reformer. Okay.
Just say your opinion.
I'm not a reformer. Okay, in my honest opinion, the whole thing with gun legislation and the whole gun controversy laws, it's a tool, to be honest. Honestly, it's like, look, if you can't honestly use a gun properly, just like if you can't use a knife properly, you shouldn't use it. I'm not going to tell somebody over here like, oh, you can't get a gun and stuff like that.
So there should just be training required.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's like anything in life. You know how to do it. If anything, if you're not mature enough and you don't have the handling enough, don't use it. Me personally, I wouldn't use a gun because I use my words instead of my fists and stuff like that, unless it has to go to that point.
I have legislation that we should like apply that just like with the driver's license, you have to take classes. Like if you're in high school, you have to take. Now there are schools that actually do that.
What, shooting class?
Yeah, shooting like they have that. They're not.
We need, yeah.
They're specific to communities.
What
though.
is the process of getting a gun license?
All right, let's
You-
put this on pause. We're going to take
Yeah.
our first break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about NRAs and gun legislation on the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.
Yeah, we really should.
It's-
Until I find the day, the only words I know that you. Until I say the only words I know that you. Until
I know you see it, girl. This ain't sitting real good in my soul. Everywhere this little girl goes, she pick up another obstacle. She was my heart. I don't know the tribe or the fall, but by default, she don't think of me. I thought she was an Indian. She be slanging things like a simian. All my life I wanted me an Indian. And now she's far away, but I had to know. Listen, I know you see it, girl. This ain't sitting real good in my soul. Everywhere this little girl goes, she pick up another obstacle. She was the tribe or default. But by default, she don't think of me. I thought she wasn't in the end. But she be slanging things like a simian. All my life I wanted me in the end. Ooh, girl, let me in. In the street with a wedding ring, and she hit the box, city babe. Are you down to cheat? He looked in the eye, chivalry. Is he really dead? He pulled out a tip. Jumping right on them. Think it wasn't good to intervene, and I lost her. Lost her to the world and the girls and imposters. Entertain, I doubt it'll pay and it cost her. I ain't mad at me, but it hurt. And I thought she wasn't in it. Now she only worried about the Benjamins. She been looking in my dreams. I swear that eyes on me. Good night, adore. I swear that eyes on me. I swear that eyes on me. I swear that eyes on me. I swear that eyes on me.
I need you, I need you, I need you. I need to make you see what you mean to me. Until I do, I'm hoping you will know what I mean.
All right, everybody, welcome back to this Friday edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my correspondent.
Double R.
Simone Cherie.
Kyle Andrew.
Jazz.
And Shahid.
All right, so we were talking about the gun thing, but I have to leave early, so we're gonna switch gears because Double R just likes to nitpick with me when he's here. So
It's
fine,
not
I'm gonna give him
nitpick.
his wish. So what do you want to talk? What do you want to get into real quick?
So, like, real quick, because I know y'all talked about the Gucci thing. But,
We
like,
did.
like, for the wokes, I want them to hear what you said for the wokes.
They heard what I said on Monday, but I can repeat it.
Because you know how woke people feel. Like, we should boycott and, like, let's stop buying it and spending our monies.
But give me, but for background purposes, dere you talking about Floyd Mayweather, or were you just talking about the situation in general?
Just the situation in general.
So, did you see what Floyd did?
No, what did he
So,
do?
basically,
Floyd said he
Floyd
don't
was like,
This man-
Floyd was like, I don't care what y'all talking about. I'm not no follower. Y'all want to stop buying Gucci? I'm about to go in this Gucci store, though.
Right.
He really did.
I agree with
And
that.
he went in there and he cut that check.
And did we like T.I.'s response?
He dropped the
This record.
I loved it.
Adrian Runner did
I
the
love
same
it.
thing. He told them like what Floyd said. I don't care either. So now everybody's all mad about it.
Yeah, but so did Antonio Brown. He's number one receiver in the country. We like, oh my God, Antonio, like how you. The problem is like what Antonio Brown said was right. They actually have that sweater in multiple colors. But because it's black and it was a white person wearing the sweater, it's blackface. So if it was a black person wearing that same sweater in black, would it be blackface?
Okay, so here's my
Can black
stance.
people do blackface, basically?
Here's my stance on it. I don't feel like it was blackface, and y'all know I'll be the first one to say if I feel like something is
'Cause you
outright blatant. I didn't get that. All I got was this is an ugly sweater. I don't know who came up with it. If anything, you should be dinged for having poor taste because it was an ugly sweater. If it was I guess I wouldn't have gotten there at period because blackface is something that you paint on. It's not something you put on in theory. So if I couldn't get there. I looked at it, and like I said, immediately I thought about the guys that go to the gym with the little Bane mask and they work out, and it covers their mouth and the bottom of their face. That's what I immediately thought about. Like I said, do I think it was in poor taste? Yes, it was ugly, but I didn't get blackface from it. Here's the problem I have with us. The first thing we want to do is boycott. Kudos to paying homage to our ancestors and being willing to do a protest. Unfortunately, the ideology when they did it back in civil rights days, everybody was on one page. So it wasn't, oh, Martin Luther King is doing it, but Malcolm X is doing it. It was never like that. It was everybody said we're going to do this. We're proving a point. We're going to do it united because when we hit them united, it makes an imprint. When you say we're going to boycott Gucci, first of all, half you can't afford it. We're talking about the real Gucci, not Bucci or Suchi. Gucci. Most of you really can't afford it. First and foremost. Secondly, you're not going to get athletes and stuff who have gotten accustomed to buying this crap to stop buying it on a whim. Everybody was not united on this. I was not in on this. everybody was not united on this and say that this was blackface. So trying to get people on one page to boycott, it was a stretch. I'm not there. I'm not about that life.
But we also talking about the same people who a couple years ago boycotted Gucci because they wouldn't let Dapper Dan be a designer. And now Dapper Dan is like the leading designer.
That was a
at
legitimate
Gucci.
cause. Now that's like us boycotting Project Runway because no black winners keep happening.
Nobody boycotted 30 years ago when Gucci sued Dapper Dan or when Louis sued Dapper Dan. We wasn't wearing Gucci and Louis like that. And then we started wearing it a lot. Mm-hmm. Nobody was like in 2003 like, dang bro, you remember when they sued Dapper Dan, but this Gucci belt though.
But
I don't know when Gucci just kind of showed up all of a sudden, like the last
Gucci.
2 years.
Gucci,
I mean, like people making popular like rappers, like the way they wear it now.
Dapper is there.
The last like 20,
okay, well maybe it's the reason.
years?
Dapper Dan is there. So
well, it's like now, like everybody's wearing it. Like before, you hear about it, but like
they got
now,
a new designer.
Maybe that's
so
what it
when you
is.
get a new designer, no, Dapper is at Louis, I think now. When you have somebody that is that important to your culture, go somewhere and design something, it brings light to whatever it is. So if Dapper would have went to Prada, don't nobody wear Prada no more.
Yeah.
Like,
but for what you said though, we are not always. No one is always all the time united. There were plenty of people who, especially as we got closer to the late '60s and early '70s, did not believe that they were going to be quiet and march anymore and hold candles anymore. There are also people who believed that they were never going to march around with guns and threaten people violently, and that wasn't going to be the way to. I mean, there were definitely.
But
there's
together,
always
though.
a divide. There's always people who think there's different ways to go about it. People who today right now think you should not kneel. People who think you should kneel all day. I mean, there's never such thing as a universal agreement when it comes to how we should address a problem.
I just think,
well, at least a general consensus.
Yeah,
at least a general consensus.
People need to be when you start talking, because everything is becoming race now, and it's like if you make everything race now, what have y'all been doing? That's always my question. What have you been paying attention to? This is not yours. It's not yours. It don't matter how much money you get or where you stay or the city you live in and the cul-de-sac in Calabash. This is not yours. It's never been yours. It wasn't created for you. But when they wanted to keep it, they needed your help.
And your money.
You're also not the person that they advocate for.
Yep.
They don't advocate for you. Gucci is not advocating for black people. Just because you throw a couple real dark-skinned people in a couple of little ads, that means nothing to me. It doesn't affect me at all. I like Nike. I think that Nike is better quality than Gucci. Just because you might get your joint hand-stitched and a little Korean kid made my shoes, they feel better. Designer shoes are mad uncomfortable. But I'm also not about to spend $500 for some little sneakers when I could go and get me some Air Force Ones for $100. It does not directly affect us, and I think that people have to understand. If you're going to boycott, it got to be a boycott. Yeah. If you put a time limit on a boycott, you whack.
Yeah.
It's
3 months.
Yeah.
3 months.
That's just random. That's just random.
3 months. Black people spent $13 billion last year in these malls. Going shopping. Dudes out here talking about they spent $250,000 on a Protect. Who is Protect? What does he do? What does he look like? I'd rather get a date. Like, when you're talking about quality, we think that the flashiest thing is the best thing.
Absolutely.
That is our culture.
Yeah.
It's to be the most flashy. So Gucci is the most flashy. Louis is the most. It means nothing to Bill Gates. Bill Gates shop at Walmart and he drive a Prius. His wife has a Maserati.
Zuckerberg wears the same thing every day.
Like, for days at a time. He changes drawers and his socks. But they got, you talking about people that got billions on top of billions of dollars. Jeff Bezos, he literally buys his clothes off Amazon. And he owns the company.
It's a mindset. We've been fighting with it for decades.
But it's us. It's always us. It's always everybody saying that they woke. Like, no, you're not. You can't be. If you don't understand that it's way bigger than Gucci, stop buying Apple. Stop buying iPhones. They made $1 trillion. That's what I'm saying. Look, that's what I'm aware of. They made $1 trillion last year, and they don't give any of that money to your neighborhood. Why? Your neighborhood don't got Apple. Your basketball court ain't got no hoops. Like, argue that. Why your basketball court don't got no hoops?
He meant nets.
I know what he meant.
No, I'm talking about actual. No, I'm talking about it where in your neighborhood. Like, I grew up in a neighborhood where we had the whole goal and it had no rim. It had no net. All we had was a backboard. Apple not coming through. Apple not coming through to do that.
Look,
Okay, wait a minute. Your homegirl got something to say. This is where y'all actually got to part ways. So what you got to say, Simone?
She not gonna give up
No,
that iPhone.
I'm just saying this is not. I understand being netless is hard. Right. Everybody deserves a net.
Your sarcasm is doing
We
no
ain't had no
All I
hoops,
was going to
cuz.
say is I don't count on major corporations to be the people who are responsible for that sort of thing.
You know what?
I don't need
Actually, pause there because this is a very good place for me to ask you a question. So, do you feel like these major companies, Facebook, Amazon, should have a social responsibility to do something?
I mean,
in
they
these
do.
communities?
They do a lot. So it's kind of hard to answer that because they do. They're taking it upon themselves. Do I think it should be legally required?
No.
Absolutely not.
I mean, not legally required.
I don't think it should be
like
required for us. Of course, I don't think it should be required for them.
But
they
That's
do.
whack. That's whack.
I mean,
to me.
I didn't mean legal. I'm just saying
But I'm
the
saying
handwriting on the wall.
but that's
in
whack
thing.
yeah.
when black people always think that somebody should do something for them. Bro, they brought you here to do nothing for you. You were supposed to do it for them. And just because over the last 50 years you got a little bit of money and now we on TV and we getting the big checks, like these folk don't have to do nothing for you. Kevin Durant don't have to go back to his neighborhood and build that technology center. He ain't got to do that. He ain't got to give these kids $10,000 a year to go to college. He don't got to do that.
that's wonderful.
Like LeBron didn't have to build no school. It only cost him $2 million. He didn't have to do that. That $2 million he could have spent on his body. He played basketball. He spent $2 million a year on his body. They don't have to do anything. That's their money. People always feel like people with money have a social responsibility
even get the
to
money.
you. What are you doing? You ain't got no money and you live in that neighborhood and you don't go outside and help nobody.
Ooh, won't even pick up the Coke can.
You
off the
live
floor.
in that neighborhood and you
Leave
won't go. You won't go tell them boys on the block, "Hey, bro, like, come on, bro." These folk that you say you grew up with, that's why I like the dude from Philly. That he just did a bid, came out of jail, all in the neighborhoods talking to the young boys. "Hey, man, let me talk to you. I ain't coming in here with no violence." We don't even do that. The OGs get out of jail like, "Hey, bro, I don't. But these young folk crazy, bro.
And
these
they are.
folk, they are.
But
who you think they learned it from? Who you think they was watching? They was watching you wild out. And now you got money. Now it's other people that you grew up with that's broke. Like, bro, why you ain't come back and do nothing? You there? Why you ain't do nothing?
Somebody said that. I can't remember. Somebody actually said that.
everyone says
might have been me.
Not,
Every time
might have
All right.
been
On that note,
All
'cause we got. All right. So let's segue to intern number 2. All right, Jess, you're up. Jazz, you're up.
Man, he
Since
just
we
called
just
you
went
Jess.
from-
Look,
Yeah, he just
I got a lot of
changed
people
the
around
whole
me
name.
remember names. Y'all gonna stop harping on me today. Everybody know who I'm talking to.
It's Friday.
On a positive note, since
Yeah,
we
that's
were
my point.
talking about people being fake woke and things of that nature, I would like to talk about something that I feel like the black community would like.
What did I tell you before we went on the air? Words you cannot use.
what?
I feel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're introducing a story. You're a journalist.
I'm
now.
introducing the story about how DeKalb County would like to add a marker to Decatur's Confederate monument that critiques it as a symbol of white supremacy and racism. So everyone knows about the Civil War and how we have monuments and street names after people who fought in the war, and people don't like those type of things because we all know that it had to do with racism and American slavery. So they're introducing that they come up with a marker, and the marker will read as follows. Located in a prominent public space, its presence bolstered white supremacy and faulty history, suggesting that the cause for the Civil War rested on Southern honor and states' rights rhetoric, instead of its real catalyst, American slavery. This monument and similar ones also were created to intimidate African Americans and limit their full participation in social and political life of their communities. It fostered a culture of segregation by implying that public spaces and public memory belong to whites. So the overall goal is to let people know, that the Confederate War wasn't about heroism. It was actually about American slavery. And it's funny because you living in the South, we know people ride around with the flags and they continue to say, "Oh, it was for the South, we fought against the North," and things of that nature, but in reality it's not. So they're taking a step to move forward with bringing awareness to it.
They gotta stop lying too.
James
the South
Comey
did not win.
called for the removal too.
Like this.
James Comey, former FBI director James Comey, called for the same thing. He said that they should all be removed. And I think more and more prominent people are saying the same thing. Governor Northam of Virginia, aka the Klan blackface yearbook picture,
Bruh.
is now
They
saying the
call
same
him
thing
bruh.
because this was really his priority a couple weeks ago. Is now saying that they should all be removed. And Birmingham and Memphis and Atlanta are trying to do the same thing. So basically, because legally, people have not been able to get them removed. So now this is, I think,
This is
because
the
they're,
offset.
because they're state monuments. The problem is like you have to start it. They really got to start like in these neighborhoods. Go look at streets, like street names. Like if you're in Atlanta, almost every street should be named Martin Luther King. For real. But then when you really look at names of streets and you realize like who is bruh? He not black. Like
they did just change one recently though.
They
I can't
just
remember
changed
where
the
it
street
was.
name.
It was Edgewood or somewhere, but they did just
they change them all the time, but that's a start. But you got to do that on every monument in Georgia though.
Yeah.
It's mad monuments in Georgia.
Yeah.
That's just Decatur.
Well, listen, I like this idea better than taking them down. I don't like the idea of taking them. I never heard a good argument for taking them down altogether, like this didn't happen, like this doesn't exist. Like you're never going to stop the fact that if there's a Confederate descendant who walks past that and they feel that's you can't control.
It's a
that.
perception
You
thing.
can't control
Yeah,
that.
and they're not going to change the name of Wall Street. Slaves were sold on Wall Street. They're not going to change that name.
But it's not called Slave Street.
No, it's called Wall Street.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, like they're not going to change. They're not going to do that. They're going to leave it there.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna pick up really quickly with the 21 Savage story. Shahid,
21.
21 Savage. What is it?
Yeah.
You was about to say it. 21.
Look, they all are aware of what all I got going on. So trying to keep up with things in my head, I'm doing a pretty good job.
21.
All things
You
considered.
pat yourself.
21.
I'm doing a pretty good job, all things considered, with
I
all
got
that's
you with
going
the
on.
ad
All right,
lib.
so Shahid,
21.
we went over the 21 Savage story about him having, I think, an H-4 visa, which was really given to his parents,
21.
something like that. And they took him, and where do we stand now? You break it, you brought it.
21.
So pretty much just stand on this. 21 Savage pretty much was released, as you guys know, on February 5th. And pretty much he went on today. I forgot which TV show he went on.
Good Morning America.
Yeah, he went on Good Morning America to pretty much discuss about the whole, like, oh yeah, what the revelation of his like immigration status, like, oh, like, and like the details that came out of it and whatnot. Because pretty much what I read through an article was the sense of like, all right, he's pretty much explaining about like the pretty much why he came under the whole UK immigration stance was because at one point he did live in Atlanta for most of his life, but then the problem was is that at a certain point he had to go back to the UK to go to his grandfather's funeral, and then he decided to come back around. And most of his time residing, when he came back over here, most of his time residing, his mom did not really, like we all know, his mom didn't really tell him about the whole visa situation. Even himself, he came out to say like he didn't know about it. It was just recently upon himself that he had known about like, oh, his visa just now expired, and then the whole situation came up to the point where now he decided to go in and then just like reapply for his visa and whatnot.
But didn't they catch him lying that he had lied at one point and said he was born here?
No,
No.
he went to school here.
Yeah.
So when
But
you
in
go,
an interview, I think it was in an interview with.
no, they asked him where he was from. He was, I'm from Atlanta.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah, he didn't say he was born in Atlanta. He said
Okay.
he's from Atlanta.
So
Okay.
we
All
mincing
right,
words
all
now?
right.
But the thing with this particular case is like when you look at you look at territories. So they say like Haiti was a territory of the French, and now it's not. It's Haiti now. Like they're independent. Well, Dominica is not independent. It's still, I guess, a part of the British Islands, and that's cool. But now I got to look at his, like, it's not one of those things where we got to blame him because he's known since 2016, hey, I have to reapply for this visa. And they said he's reapplied, like his status is in waiting. So he's actually waiting to be approved. But it's a work visa. Like he's been here since he was 13 years old. But it's people saying like, no, I went to elementary school with bro. Which means that he was here. And he told the story. He was here, he left, and he came back. And he grew up in the neighborhood that he's always claimed to be in. You can't take anything from him. So even if you deport him, he can still go back home and apply for a work visa because technically he is an artist. He's a musician. He can travel the world for work. He doesn't, his base is in Atlanta. But at the end of the day, he can travel the world. So that's why they haven't deported him yet. He's like multiple people that's just waiting on the visa. He's one of those. And Trump is like, no, we finna get everybody up out. If you wait, you can get up out of here. And when we approve you, you can come back. But that's what they're making it seem like. But because he black and he from the hood and he got the face tat and he's one of ours, like we've watched him grow over the years.
I don't know who he is.
He's one
I
of
thought
ours.
it would be
He
interesting
21.
to see what money.
He 21.
I'm 39. What does that mean?
No.
Even though he's 26, he's 21.
All right, on that note, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I have to leave. So Simone is taking the main chair. So stick around the leadership blend with your
Yeah, we're
host,
gonna diss
Ricardo
Ricardo.
D. Rice.
We're going to diss Ricardo when you leave.
You think I can't hear you? Shut down?
I've had my eyes on you for a while, and though it seems the time isn't right, I know you want the love that I've got to give. We laughed and kissed till the sun took us by surprise, telling the whole truth about our lives. I'm so in love with what you got to give. I can show you that love is a cure for heartache. Let me show you, baby. Don't be afraid of a good thing. I can show you that love is a cure for heartache. You think your heart needs to hurt for a while longer. Live all alone till it makes you stronger. Learn who you are without her love. I know I've been there before, but I won't wait for a love like yours. I can't hesitate. Stay a while and let me change your mind. I can show you that love is a cure for heartache. Let me show you, baby. Don't be afraid of a good thing. I can show you that love is a cure for heartache. Let me show you. I can show you that love is a cure for heartache. Let me show you, baby. Don't be afraid of a good thing. I can show you that love is a cure for heartache. Yeah. Woo. I can show that love is a cure for heartache. Let me show
All right, everybody, we are back. It is Friday. It is February 15th, and we're back on the Leadership Blend, but Ricardo Rice is not
He
here.
is not here.
It is
We
Simone
about to
Cherie.
diss
We're
him.
all, well, listen, we definitely can, especially while he's in the car right now, because it's probably not going to be too easy for him to call in. But we're back, and we have a lot more to cover. We're going to cover entertainment. We're going to cover politics a little bit, but I want everybody to go around really quickly. So we have
Double R.
Kyle Andrew.
Jazz.
And Shahid.
All right, so we talk about 2020 all the time because every day there's more developments going on for who's running for office. But there was some very big interviews this week. There was.
Oh yeah, because
So on the Breakfast Club, Hillary Clinton had a page out of her book taken a couple different times. So Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. I gotta stop saying Kamala. We were just talking about this. Kamala Harris went on the Breakfast Club. Amy Klobuchar, who is a former prosecutor and was the main prosecutor in the Kavanaugh situation, also announced as well. So, and Howard Schultz is getting a little bit more shade and getting a little bit more quiet as the only independent who's announced so far, the CEO of Starbucks. So I want to go and not just talk about 2020, but I also want to talk about all the issues that are on the table with regard to weed legislation, with regard to ending cash bail, and with dealing with poverty, because I've got a list of all their proposals right now to see how they're going to handle it. Some are giving out free cash, which when Ricardo was here, he was a big fan of. Others are doing other things.
Free cash.
So we're going to mix
they're gonna give
education
away money.
into this,
Yeah.
pretty much.
That's going to work.
I like the idea.
Like where that's going to come from.
I don't know where that comes from. Yeah.
And this is a
Right.
good, because I think we're a really good pool here about different types of people who vote, hopefully vote, and will keep it to themselves if they don't. We got really privileged people, you know what I mean?
I'm not privileged.
Other sorts of
Yeah, your
demographics
pants got a
here.
stripe on them. You privileged.
Kyle's wealthy, so we asked him, you know, how
You
wealthy
got on
people
dress
think.
socks. You privileged.
You can get dressed out from Walmart.
Private school.
You shop at Walmart.
I
You
can't believe he knows what
privileged.
Walmart is.
I said I shop at Walmart.
I can't believe he knows what Walmart is. I can't believe it.
I didn't get these from Walmart, but
Oh, yeah, I know you privileged.
Yo.
What did we think of, if you've seen clips of it, and I have a couple of quotes here I can pull, but Kamala went on the Breakfast Club and basically got the whole hour to
talk crazy.
to talk about her policy position. So if you don't have any background, she's announced for about a month officially yet, and she's kind of put out some of her biggest proposals first. She's talked about how she wants to eradicate poverty. She's doing something bigger than all the other Democratic candidates are, in the sense that she wants to just give out cash of about $600 a month to people who make under a certain amount of money. She's also talked about Medicare for all. So she doesn't have a proposal for that, for free healthcare, but it's pretty close. It's basically going to make sure that everyone has it who doesn't have it. If you can't use the exchange, if you've been left out of the exchange. So she's got a very liberal agenda so far. She had a lot of heat in the last couple of weeks over her record as a prosecutor, because statistics were pulled and showed how many black men she'd put in jail, and it was, I guess, more than any others. She did. She defended it on that interview. She said that she'd actually done a lot. She talked about a lot of good that she'd done. She talked about a lot of her great proposals. But when we were here, I pulled up a clip of her her tardiness law that she enacted, basically saying you need to go to jail. Parents need to go to jail if their kids are tardy.
But that's not
But
new.
for so many times.
That's not
It's
new. That
she wasn't the
implemented
first
before-
person to
first
do
one.
it, but this is a huge. The area in California she was responsible for. She was a really major prosecutor for that county.
And
And
nobody
I thought-
actually went to jail. But they
That's not
did
true.
pull
Six
parents.
people did go to jail,
Yeah, you deserve to go to jail.
and
if you don't-
others got fined because it was one or the other. It was you pay, I think, $2,500, or you go to jail.
So that would be one of those questions like you ask parents. If you knew that that you would get in trouble for not making sure that your child went to school, would you do it?
How do
Most
you
parents
feel?
would say yes. Me as a parent, yeah, get up. My mom used to come in the room like, yo, hey.
So you feel like there's no excuse to be tardy in the first place?
I feel like it's no excuse for you as a parent that have that control, especially because you're talking about young children. She targeted parents for young kids, because tardiness and truancy is not the same thing. Okay. So by the time you get to middle school, it's truancy. I don't have to go directly to your parents for you skipping school. I'm gonna come to you.
But
now
it was
I'm
K
gonna call
through
your
12.
parents. But a lot of those parents were little, like elementary school, middle school. So if my target is to make sure, especially in the development of the brain, middle school, elementary school, to make sure that you go to school. Kids don't love school. Like, I ain't love school. I went.
Right.
I didn't.
Oh, that's
I'm saying,
wonderful.
but
I
all
love hearing.
kids
Thank
don't-
you. Thank
all
you.
kids don't love school. I went to school and like I was good at it. I played sports. I ain't really like it though. Like
my
school
friends
was
were at
mad boring to me.
Exactly. I think the bigger issue is that, like I was saying before, that she made it criminal, that she made it a misdemeanor, that there was now a record which to me is just a very, very big deal.
Yeah, I don't think parents should be labeled as criminal just because their kids like tardy for 3 days.
Yeah, and maybe on purpose.
Yeah.
You
It's
know
like
what I
you're
mean?
in the jail.
If you went to school like I don't, if you didn't go to school like I didn't go to school,
Yeah.
and there was a record
But
about
I mean,
it.
last time we talked about this, Ricardo told me that my opinion didn't matter because I went to private school.
But look, I also
I'm
went to
tired of people
private
picking
school.
on wealthy people. I really
also
am.
went to private school,
See?
and they would assess a fine to your tuition if you miss more than 3 days with no
Right,
excuse.
everything is like- yeah.
They would assign a fee to your tuition. But in public school, it doesn't matter. Like, a lot of this stuff is really community based. Because if somebody white did this in a white neighborhood, we would look at this like, them white folk, but they don't go to school anyway.
It's like, let's not
Well,
care.
I would look at it more like, well, they all have the $2,500, so maybe
yeah.
they'll all avert the consequence of going to jail. But it's like if you have a kid who's very truant, what I was saying, if they're very truant in the first place, and then you put their parent in jail, assuming, I mean, they may only have one, then what? So now they're an orphan.
It's even worse. It's even worse.
It's just not a good
because you put
idea.
them in jail and they can't afford bail.
True.
Right.
Because they can't.
Because
we
they
know
couldn't pay the
can't afford
fine,
the
so what makes
$2,500.
you think they can afford to
The
get
whole
out?
thing was that she taken into circumstances like behind the doors, like everybody.
Right.
Some parents really have to work all those hours.
Yeah. And
they
have to try to
struggle make
trust
their
that their
to get to
child.
school,
Yeah.
so.
And when I looked it up, like, it ain't like they did time. Like, no, we're gonna throw the cuffs on you. We're gonna take you.
Depending
to jail.
on the county, time is time.
Yeah.
Time is time.
Yeah, if you
24
miss a
hours
day-
could change your
You
life.
miss a day of work, that can change your whole life dramatically.
Yeah.
It sucks
But
being
so
in the
so
But when
couldn't.
you
48
saying
hours.
They didn't do time. You mean they took them to a program like Beyond Scared Straight?
No, he means they didn't do
like,
hard time.
They didn't like you.
Waiting.
Most of those parents, I think, when I read in a couple of cases, it is six or seven people. Only 3 of them was in there for 24 hours.
Yeah, but that's a long time depending
it
on what
is,
jail
but-
you get sent to.
It
really
It's
is.
a long
Especially
If
I've
your
never
child,
been
if
to
your
jail.
child can be cool with not going to school, because that always is the argument. Like, I get it, and I'm against it at the same time because I'm a parent. I can't be cool with my child being cool with me not making them get up to go to school.
I think it's more like
Like, if you don't come in my room like, hey, Dad's telling me to go to school,
I'm failing as a parent.
I'm failing as a parent.
I get that.
There is no punishment for parents
No,
at all,
No.
unless you like beach kids and
Right.
everybody in the neighborhood know it. And kids come to school
exactly.
looking
And I think
crazy.
honestly, I just think that's how it should be. I don't think it's the school's job. Definitely don't think it's the Fed's job or the police's job to.
pull up on you. and make
Right.
you- make
I
your
just
kids
don't.
go
Unless
straight.
I have beat my kid. And
Yeah.
really, I mean beat. I don't mean like spank. I mean beat. So so she was kind of on there. She defended her record, and she also said, listen, there's some people who are just never going to forgive certain things. I don't think that this is like as bad as she can't possibly be president. I don't think it's like that. This is, I think, probably some of her worst dirt because it came up so fast.
And
so,
she was in a predominantly black neighborhood. So as a prosecutor, and when you're in a neighborhood where everybody in your neighborhood black and all the black people that in your neighborhood commit crime, you have no choice but to prosecute all the black people that come in your courtroom. If she was sitting somewhere like Phoenix, Arizona, or in Tempe, Arizona, or in Atlanta, Georgia, where most of those people wouldn't be black, a majority would, but you would have a lot of white people, you could make that argument. I don't find a problem with. I personally just don't think that she has enough momentum to counteract what we're seeing from Trump.
What do you guys think about Booker? Like
I haven't heard Booker even speak yet.
I was gonna say I've heard some of his
He was on
speeches.
Breakfast Club.
When?
Well, he did.
The
He
week
got-
Corey
before
and
Kamala.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I said, come on, but I call myself.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
He was
See,
the week before Kamala. He was there.
calm.
Like he's talked
too.
a bit. You know,
Who's he?
he's from
Senator out of New Jersey.
Yeah, he's from Jersey.
Has been there for a while. He was the mayor of Newark. I think he's been in office for a long
I did
time.
see.
yeah,
I
like
watched a
I
couple
think
minutes.
he
From
did a
office
whole
to office
term.
to office
yeah.
to office.
He's always had a full term in every office. But even back to Kamala, she was asked the question, and I want to ask y'all too. Like, she was asked the question by Charlemagne, what specific, and we talked about it a little bit, what specifically are you going to do for black people?
And you know, that's funny because that's like when I said I was in the comment section, everybody was like, nope, we're not here for Kamala.
So what did she say?
I don't know
And what did
exactly
you
what
say?
she said.
Okay.
But
Well,
I just
I could-
noticed that
I
people were
could
like, where is the
paraphrase.
black agenda? Everybody else gets something, but we want something for black people. And people were calling her Obama 2.0. And they were saying, our generation, we're woke to that now. We're not going to go through that again. We want something that actually happens. So that's what she was being punished for in the comment section.
then
Do
I
you feel
would
like your
say-
generation isn't very content with what former President Obama did for the country, for Black people?
It depends on your perspective.
To the mic.
Do you think there's a general consensus?
The narrative that's been painted, far as I know for myself, is he was the greatest of all time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think our generation
Okay.
appreciates him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Do you
especially
think he
from
had
the
a
turn-
did he have a Black agenda to you?
I was in 6th grade.
Yeah,
when he came in,
I'm
so
not gonna lie. I was young and I
I was
wasn't paying
true.
that much attention. But what was Kamala's?
So what she spoke about was a lot of policies that every president since Clinton that I can remember spoke about: healthcare, reforming the bail system.
I was gonna say,
like
yeah, that's
with
one thing
cash
I love.
bail.
I do love. Yeah.
The marijuana thing. The thing with putting money in the public schools, making sure that people that can't afford their bills every month has money to afford their bills every month. Like she was saying the same things that every single president says.
Yeah.
So
They
the
are
same
not
people.
specific to our community.
No, it's yeah, that's
Like-
true. That's true.
And what people have to understand, and especially this particular generation, because I don't think that, like, if you're 17 and you can't vote yet, it don't matter to you. By the time you vote next year, you're just gonna vote whoever the Black person is.
That's what I did when I was, because I couldn't vote until I was 19. So I was just watching because Obama was running his second term when I was just turned 17. So
I didn't get to vote until Trump just came into office.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
was
I
a
was.
different ballgame for
I
me.
saw how disappointed people were when this was their first vote.
Yeah, like, it's like who I'm gonna vote for.
Yeah.
But
It's like,
we're
dang.
going.
Wah, wah, wah.
We're kind of going into one of those things where the policies aren't clear because there's never been clear policy for Black people, and it's not going to be.
And so, but you, in large part, don't believe that we really need that, or do you believe that we're just not going to get that?
No, I don't believe. I know we're not going to get specific policy.
But do you think we need a Black agenda? Do you think there needs to be a
I
Black
think.
agenda?
I think that Black agendas wouldn't start with the president. I think it will start locally. We assume like it starts with the president, but if your governor is white and your mayor is white,
And that's
your
why people
senator is
always
white,
say
and your
you
Congress-
vote locally and things of that nature.
Right, but like for what? I want to know what items
What is the Black
we
agenda?
consider the Black agenda as.
that
Black
would be the question I would ask
folks.
somebody
Truth be
like
told.
y'all, because
gonna
I
say, that's the
know
first thing I wanna know.
I understand like the plight, but I also understand like a lot of that start with us. So like we can't argue about Black people can't argue healthcare because
Yeah.
we've never been a proponent of spending a lot of money for healthcare. We've never been that.
Well,
We've
it's
been-
also that covers all colors.
Yeah,
Because
like-
all people want healthcare. So it's more about. Go ahead.
If anything, this is my honest peek of the situation at best. I like the whole thing where you guys are talking about you guys got to start locally, especially for Black people, because no offense, in all honesty, for my race, I do love. But at the same time, it's like, look, when it comes to Black people at best, it's like we really pay attention to other things than we do more politics. And then at the same time, it's like, before we even go to politics, don't you think we should know more about ourselves before we go in depth with other things, if anything, before you know the issues that these people are going to bring up to you? Because you do these people represent you, but then at the same time, how do you not know the things that you want to be done and your like specific things like a Black agenda and whatnot? Because say for example, if we're all going to go over here, we're going to talk about a Black agenda. My Black agenda may be different from your Black agenda, yours.
Well, what's on your Black agenda? I'm very curious what's on your Black agenda.
And where does
I
your
mean-
Black agenda start?
My Black agenda really starts from like, I can't really, because the way that I go about it, it really starts from me, and then it sort of extends outward. So that way it shows within like my reality and whatnot, if you could catch the metaphysics and the whole spirituality of what I'm trying to do with it. Because for me, it's like, it starts with how you go about your business, what you are trying to be self-aware of yourself, and how you, and the things that you see wrong in your community and whatnot, and then how you feel like you should go about it and stuff like that. Because for me, it's like, I can't really put on like, I can't speak for everybody because everybody has their different
But
way
I'm
of doing
asking yours.
it. Me?
So you basically saying that it start with you first.
Yeah, like
But what's
how,
the it? I'm asking you.
the it in terms
If
of,
you have a Black, you don't have to have a Black agenda.
That's
I'm
a good
saying,
question.
do you have one?
I'm sitting
Do
here
I
right
have
here
one in
thinking, what
terms
is my
of-
Black agenda?
in terms of like how are we putting this off as Black agenda? Like what is it exactly? Like is it just something like, okay, we as Black people need to be talked about?
But you know what you're getting to? That is the specific question that I'm talking about. black people don't actually understand or know.
Well, here's what I've
the
heard.
Agenda.
Well, here's what I've heard.
is.
I have heard people say things that are cultural, more so. Well, sometimes economic, but usually cultural. The first thing is that they want representation. So, Rep. Maxine Waters has a bill put forth that requires companies with a certain amount of employees or revenue, big companies, to have a board that is diverse with an actual quota system, which constitutionally is not even, we don't have quotas constitutionally. We have ways of trying to increase diversity, but there's never been a quota. She's actually trying to institute a quota system, like a mandate for companies. That is a racially motivated agenda. If you're saying, okay, well, I think that black people should be seen at these levels, in these industries or in these circles, that is like, okay, that's a black agenda. If your agenda includes,
I'm gonna argue you all day.
if it includes economics. So if it's a situation where it's like, all right, there are neighborhoods that are majority black, there are neighborhoods that have a certain income level, and you believe those neighborhoods should be flooded with certain industry or should have subsidies so they can stay there, that affects black people, you know, especially depending on the city we're talking about. It could be all black people. That would be a black agenda. It could be about college admittance. It could be about whether or not schools should admit African American students with different standards than other students, because we keep getting test scores that say that we don't score the same for whatever
I'm gonna
reason.
argue that too.
But I know you will. I'm saying these are example items. So if you have no black agenda, if you claim to have a black agenda, I want to know what people's specifics are. And a lot of times you already know what those numbers are. You know what I mean? It depends on the issue that's the biggest, that's of most importance to you. One thing that I do, that has come out in research is how often black women die during childbirth. That is an issue that clearly focuses on us for whatever reason. So that issue could be there too.
It's becoming higher. It's not one of those things that's not, like, it's not new that black women they have harder childbirths. But when you start studying like that field, you understand like why a lot of women don't take epidurals.
Birth control, because it all started.
They don't
off
take
with,
birth control. Like birth control is one of those things. Like especially as a black young girl, they say no, you need to be on birth control. Why? I ain't having sex, but you need to be on birth control. Just
Doesn't
in
it have
case.
like other benefits just beyond like?
Yeah, there's lots of
contraception?
benefits.
It's benefits,
Yeah.
but it depends on the birth control. Most black parents don't do enough research on the actual birth control. They get the one that's free. Because Planned Parenthood gives away birth control. Like they will put you on a birth control program and that would be your regimen. Or they'll take you to a doctor that was recommended by Planned Parenthood and then they'll put you on that exact same regimen. I don't know a lot of girls that take different birth control. Most of the girls I know, if they take birth control, it's usually the exact same one. Or they get
Which one? I know plenty of different women that have different birth control.
It's a blue pill. I don't know the name
They all
of
take
it.
oral. Most of the women
I
I
never
know
asked.
have implants of
It's
some
a
sort.
white pill, or
They
they
have
got the little
Implanon or
joint
an
that look
IUD.
like this up in their body.
Yeah, an IUD.
The IED.
And those are lots of different brands of all those.
and it's a couple of those, but how harmful are those? You know what I'm
Depends.
saying? Like how you get how can something that you get implanted in your arm stop you from getting pregnant?
But-
I never understood that. That's just like a different type of research.
But lots of white women use birth control like that. Like that's not just something that African American women use. I mean, lots of different races use that. But our abortion rate is higher than white women's. So black women have abortions far more frequently than white women do, statistically.
Yeah, but when you look at the number, when you statistically look at the girls that are actually getting the abortions, they're younger. These are not like mad old women. Like
They are younger. They're mostly under 35. But for a lot of them, it's not their first abortion. It's like 50%. This was in
have had
2014
more
or
than one.
2012. Yeah, had more than one.
had more than one.
So I don't know if we should be looking for a black agenda in a presidential candidate. I think that usually what black people do, which is why we tend to vote so much the same, is that we're looking like, okay, who looks the least likely to re-enslave me? That's usually what the field comes down to. It's usually the person who's not wearing cowboy boots and not from a certain part of the country.
I think that if people like start doing their research and you realize like a lot of this legislation literally start down the street. It start down the street. So like, especially in Georgia, legislation that starts that usually gets to wherever it get to, like it'll start here. Southern states, especially for the East Coast, a lot of that, like the guy
Texas
that we had from
has started a lot.
From the Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah.
he said a lot of the legislation that we see, it come through his office. Like he see it first, and then they sit down in a group of people, and then they look over it again. So you start realizing like it don't come from the dude at the top. He just got to sign it. It don't come to Congress. True. They just got to vote on it.
True.
It comes way before that. It's levels to that.
It starts with us.
It does.
Yeah.
So and that's why I said like, where does the black agenda start? Because we think it starts with the president, it doesn't.
I'm thinking maybe with the kids. It's like if we get better resources in schools and pay teachers more, maybe get some like recruit more male teachers.
Hey, we just had this argument.
I know we did, but just like more male
but we
teachers.
we can have that real argument, like because Ricardo not here.
But I want to cover all the issues, not just one issue. But that's a good point. That's a good point.
But I think like the agenda, we haven't had like an this is my opinion. I don't think there's an adequate candidate. I think it's a lot of good ones. I think they could be like exactly in the position that they hold right now. I don't think that they could be president. I think that Maxine Waters like represents a lot of the feeling that black people have, but she's too radical to be president.
Very radical, very.
She won't go online. She won't go in the lines of like what they would want her to do in a sense. And
no, she's an older black woman who's lived.
She gonna do what she want to do.
She's lived. And I ain't talking about like just being like I grew up and like had good. She's lived, so she has experiences that a lot of other black women that are coming in. Kamala don't have those same experiences.
No, clearly, I'm wondering what her experiences have been. I really
Alexandria don't have those same experiences. So she has. Obama didn't have the same experiences. So it was things that she would argue, and I'm like, dang, I like Obama, but when she said it, I'm like. Hey, Maxine turned.
But a lot of
Maxine, and I think that she would be like a great running mate, but I don't think that she could hold that.
They could put her in a big cabinet. They could make her like I mean, she could be 3 or 4 or 5. I mean, she could be more influential than she is, especially because she's from California. But part of the reason why we don't know a lot about local government, in addition to the fact that there's no civics in schools, is because it's just not as fun or entertaining to watch. It's much lower budget. Like if you think about the news, when people say, do you watch the news? They're watching usually national news if they can watch it for any amount of time because it's HD, for one. I mean, it works. There is on demand. You can find it in different sorts of places. There are budgets for the hosts and the setup, and it's just a better production. If you watch your local GPB station, no offense, GPB, shout out to GPB, Georgia Public Broadcasting. But if you watch like local news, it's just very different.
It's dull.
It's a very different experience. And so people aren't always as interested in watching it any longer than they have to see what is going on.
And it's not attractive.
It's not attractive.
And I could just go outside and see the news, if anything.
Well, that's what I mean. People watch it for the traffic and the weather.
Yeah.
But local news actually has news, like inside the Georgia Capitol. They have commentators like doing analysis on what's going on in the rooms. They have bills flying around.
Like those people might be ugly.
Yeah, they are. They are. Listen.
Look, I'm
they
just
are.
being honest.
They have plain brown suits. They're overweight. These are the people you elect. You know what I mean?
Look,
so it's not as
that's what they used
looking.
to talk about. What's his name? The black dude from Good Morning America.
Oh, Fred Blankenship?
No.
You're talking about Michael Strahan.
No, he's Good Morning America.
Yeah, Michael Strahan.
No, he used to be the weather guy.
Al
Roker.
Roker. Oh,
Al Roker when he was fat. Roker.
Yeah.
They used to clown Al.
Yeah, but now
and
what
they
you
would
gonna
not
say?
watch the weather. But look at him now. He got the cool suits. Like he got the Dolce and Gabbana glasses. Now he get to sit in. And actually discuss news instead of just being the weather guy.
But on the local level, it's not like that.
It's not like that.
It's
like
just,
if you ugly, you probably
it's okay.
doing the weather.
That's not what I mean is.
Or you the dude that talk about traffic, but we'll never see
So
you.
we're the pretty people then.
I was gonna say actually some of the we have weather women.
Like the
mostly.
weather
We got
women
and they're
most
usually
of the women
usually
in
pretty.
weather
But the
dope.
people who would do this type of news, like we have CNN type stuff, like outside of just regular news, where they are actually reporting on like stuff that's going on. It's just it's not
not
fun.
attractive.
It's not fun to. There's no actual commercials, so the screen just goes blank. It says waiting. you know what I mean? Like it's the lower.
And I think like the agenda
maybe that should change,
I
so
think
the
that-
people will care who their governor is and remember his name. Or
I think
you know
that
what I mean?
people like they try to skip steps. So like Alexandria, she never ran for any other office and she won. So
but I think
now
she's popular
gonna be
because
the-
she's so young and she's tweeting like she
and,
tweets like
she-
crazy and
I guess she pretty.
people think she's attractive.
Yeah.
So
Alexandria?
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. I just googled it.
So
okay,
it's like
good.
when you watch her, she's now going to be that leading example for new young women coming up in politics. Like, hold on, so I can just go run and be pretty and win.
I mean,
No,
people should
Mr.
run.
Genealogy.
That is good. I think that,
She learned it on the fly too.
and Trump inspired her to run.
Yeah,
You know, because people, I think a lot of people kind of figured, well, look,
he
if he,
inspired somebody.
or if she, right, how bad could it be? My record ain't that bad. You ain't gonna find me saying the stuff he said. So if he got elected, you know what I mean?
So you're pretty much saying like they just watched Miss Congeniality, saw Donald Trump, and just thought, hey, we can just run.
Yes, and I'm all for it personally because I've been waiting for non-politicians to get elected for a long time. Georgia has the biggest rate for keeping politicians than any other state. The highest incumbent rate. We just reelect the same people over and over and over and over.
And is it even that we elect them, or they just win because nobody votes
Except the people who elect them.
vote?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That's
So it's
what's
like
so crazy.
we
Like,
have to. I'm happy for people who have no political experience. I hate seeing somebody's resume and it's like they've only been in office. It's
Like,
like
I
when
think
have you
make it-
actually experienced the stuff that you're going to end up legislating on? Like,
Right.
because you never had jobs and you're about to write laws that apply to all of these different jobs. Like, that to me is like, I want you to have experience outside of that. I want you to have done something.
Like, I feel like that's the reason why people were so mad at Nathan Deal, because they thought he'd been in office for like 20 years, and it felt 20.
But he was great.
He got like a lot done. And I didn't used to be a fan of Nathan. Like, I tried to shake his hand one time, and like,
Oh.
and
Go
somebody
ahead.
like kind of pushed my hand down, because he was coming through like a crowd, but he saw me. We made eye contact.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
I saw you
okay,
saw me.
I saw you see me.
Yeah.
But like, it felt like he was in office for a long time. Like, even with what's the whack mayor, like whatever, Kasim,
What was wrong with Kasim Reed?
a lot.
Kasim Reed made a lot of money for the city.
I know he
though.
made a lot of
Is he
money. He
Republican?
did make a lot of money
We have not had a Republican mayor, I don't think, since
for a long
Adam
time.
and Eve. No,
Yeah.
never.
He did make a lot of money. He lost a lot of money too. Spent a whole lot of money. Ain't fixed the pothole on North Side yet.
True.
But
True,
we ain't
true.
gonna go into that. But
So, okay, so that makes sense. But just because we're talking about state and local government, the one issue that I want to bring up before we do have to cut to a break is marijuana legislation.
do it.
Because this is different than all the other issues where it's like, okay, start at the bottom, work your way up. The bottom has spoken, and states after states after states are legalizing, and the federal government has not. So the federal government is wasting money on not a constant basis, but on a semi-regular basis to intercede with what's going on at the state level and make sure that people are getting prosecuted for growing, selling, distributing, etc. Even though it's legal there, which is so backwards.
It's because
the way
they're
the Constitution
going
was
to
written,
lose money.
just
Money,
but the
money,
background
money,
for
money.
it is that the way the Constitution is written, you're always supposed to have like a guarantee at the top, and then the states can add more. And this is backwards because the states are basically giving you a right, and the government at the top is taking it away.
Yeah.
And Trump, under Obama, it was not enforced. Under Trump, under Jeff Sessions, it was. Now that Sessions is out, technically it no longer is. And Trump does not care about weed. He's not fervent against about keeping marijuana illegal, which to me, this is a prime opportunity to
I think
seize
he
on
gonna
that.
turn up.
Yeah.
He
Because
gonna turn
Trump
up.
is somebody who can be swayed. If you can get a couple celebrities to that White House to schmooze with him, he will do just about anything.
I think Trump smoked.
I think he does too.
I'm
I think he
gonna li-
would.
I'm not gonna
Really?
lie. This would be the only thing that people will actually like Donald Trump for. If they were like, "Oh
I'm
yeah,
serious.
Donald Trump was able to legalize marijuana. Maybe he wasn't such a bad guy, even though it's just like."
I think it would do that. And if you think about like with the First Step Act, he got the same. People were like, "Why would you do the First Step Act if you're like so pro police or whatever?" And it was because so Republicans didn't always feel that way, but it was because he got that celebrity pressure. Celebrities coming in his camp, including Kanye West, who all y'all have written off for some reason.
Yeah.
Told y'all,
Not y'all
Kanye's
specifically,
genius.
but y'all. I'm more and more coming along to Kanye, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Nah, Kanye.
Nope.
Kanye.
But
is a beast.
he was like, all right, cool, let the blacks out. I love the blacks, let the blacks out anyway. And so they got
It's funny
signed.
that he say that.
He said, let them out. And he said, I love blacks. You know what we've done for blacks? ABC. Anyway, so he can be persuaded, and I think that it's a good thing to kind of tickle and see what you can get done. If we can legalize weed at the federal level, especially not tax it to death, I would be happy.
I think that's the reason why they won't do it.
I know they want to tax some of it, and I know they're going to tax it. Like I'm over
I feel
that.
like it's the corporations too that also have an influence on there, especially with the lobbyists along with Washington. Because let's be honest, like if it's not for the corporations, like of course they want money, but these people made it, and these corporations have made it to their foundations to keep the revenue coming in. They're not gonna let some little plant over here Like, oh, we're gonna let this plant, even though it has many opportunities, and we could tax it, and we could do many things to get money out of it, but we already have certain things into play. We got to keep these things into play, or find a way to like merge it onto here.
I was gonna say, but there's lots of companies who want it for that reason too, so that they can start selling. Like the marijuana stocks, especially Aurora. I mean, cannabis investments are getting better all the time. There was a time where they were very volatile, it was like
But
crypto.
I think he talking about like the number one medical.
They're
like,
probably gonna start using it.
like,
I don't
if
think they're gonna try to
Pfizer-
crush it. I think they're gonna
If
start
Pfizer
using it.
start selling weed,
I can imagine it.
If Pfizer starts selling weed, it'll throw off the market.
Somebody's got to though. Somebody's
Because,
got to.
Like if SC Johnson starts selling weed,
Hey,
start
sorry.
putting
They
weed.
may
If they start
putting it in the
marijuana
baby
extract
oil.
in the baby oil, dog, you know how I'm gonna buy
Look.
baby oil every
Look,
week.
it's.
so
I feel
that
like it's a
can
huge
buy it.
missed opportunity. It is a gold mine of an opportunity
so
just
funny.
sitting there.
But I also think that it eliminates. See, it's one of those things, and I kind of see why they haven't all the way went there, and why they won't. If you eliminate a base, because there's a base of people making millions and millions of dollars on weed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you take a company that's already worth billions and billions of dollars of killing people, telling them that weed don't work,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden that starts selling weed, it eliminates their base. So like one of the number one cancer drugs, if you realize that that same drug is killing you, and all you had to do is like smoke a little weed, it'll eliminate 100, 200, 300 million dollars out of our base.
That's a
Do
good
we
point.
think we gonna make that back from weed? Maybe.
All right.
There's no
Probably.
baby.
Well, look, we're going to get into a couple of more pieces of legislation, but in this last half an hour, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back on the Leadership Blend with Simone Cherie.
Yeah, take his name out.
Oh, I saw her and she hit me like that. Saw that thing so beautiful. She just hit my heart. Oh, full force and she got me like I be like, baby, why you so fine? Got to make you mine. So hard to find. Baby, like, oh, how'd you do the thing? The way that you do
All
it,
right,
she needs
everybody,
so
after a really short break, we are back on the Leadership Blend with Simone Cherie and...
Double R.
Kyle Andrew.
Jazz.
And Shahid.
Okay, so for this last half an hour, we want to talk about everything else that happened this week, especially in entertainment. So first, and Kyle just reminded me of this, I saw a clip, I didn't see the whole show, of Monique on Steve Harvey's show.
I watched that show.
Man, that clip was actually hard for me to watch. It was actually like I felt cringy and uncomfortable for them. And I was feeling like this is live and this is a lot. And it was great. Can you just give the background just for everybody who doesn't have it, and then we can talk about this clip?
All right,
Start
so-
with the fact that they are friends.
Yeah.
So
it-
you know
yeah.
how friends get when they argue.
Yeah, and you could tell that watching it. You could tell that Steve was just trying to construct her like from a friendly perspective. Like it was like a brother-sister relationship. You
He
know
was
what I'm saying?
giving his opinion. Like,
Yeah.
nah, you're doing it wrong.
So basically, a couple of years ago, Monique was in a movie called Precious, and she was supposed to go overseas to promote the movie, but they weren't going to pay her for that. And she was upset about that. And people like Whoopi Goldberg were trying to tell her, well, that's just how the business works. Once you get paid, you're just supposed to go and promote it. But she is calling out people like Tyler Perry, Oprah,
Lee Daniels.
and Lee Daniels and saying that she's been blackballed from the industry. She actually has gone on to even say that she was supposed to play the role of Cookie on Empire.
She was.
But she didn't get that because she's been quote unquote blackballed. So she was on the Steve Harvey show earlier this week, and they just went at it, and it was like a real argument. But you said earlier, it was like a brother sister argument, but it was like a very heated discussion.
And it was on live TV.
It was, and yeah,
But it was correct. I think the I get it, and she cool with Tyler now because Tyler talked to her, and he said like in the Instagram post that him and Oprah talked to Monique and kind of understood her plight and got it. But you're talking about an industry where you're fighting executives. See, Tyler owns his industry.
Yeah.
Oprah owns her industry. So you can be a part of their industry.
The biggest names in Black
But when you're talking about everybody else, Lee Daniels kind of, he is the biggest thing on TV.
Yeah.
And he's on like regular TV. Like he on Fox. So when you say that your man's is, first of all, you took a pay cut and you knew you was taking a pay cut because you were guaranteed other things. Empire was one of those things that she was guaranteed. So you lost on Precious, you lost the road to Taraji, and she's coming out and speaking about these things. But these are things that all other people in the industry understand, and they've spoken about. Jada Pinkett spoke about the same thing a couple years ago. Gabrielle Union spoke about the same thing, like being blackballed in the industry, where they say as a black woman, an actress, your draw isn't big enough for you to be the star in a movie.
Well, but so that's what she was pointing out, because she was saying, if you look at Amy Schumer, if you look at this other person or that other person, they're commanding this, and I've been doing this for how long? So that was part of her argument.
And Netflix tell you that you can pack out 16,000 and they're gonna pay you 21 million.
Yeah, I think Monique was more focused on the fact what she has done and not what she's doing now, because
she still sells out clubs across the country and has a residency in Vegas.
So
she
then
does
how
have
can
a
you?
residency.
So do you not think she's wrong? Do you not think she's right then?
No, I think that both sides made great arguments, but her original point wasn't the films, because we knew she got blackballed after Precious. Everybody knew that. When she got the Academy, she said it like, I've been doing movies like this. She had done a movie right after that, an independent movie that I think was better than Precious. Didn't get nominated. Did all the promo, and when somebody tell you, especially when you make that kind of money off a movie, Precious made money, and then they only pay you 50 bands.
But to me, it's like she was more upset or hurt by the fact that, like you said, they were
Lee
friends.
was her man.
So if they were friends, then where were y'all? Basically,
right. Nobody.
That's
came
different
and
than
stood
why
up
it
for her.
happened.
In comedy, nobody came out and said, "Yo, you know what? She right."
But people even said some stuff.
did.
Like Steve said, okay, so Steve kind of minimized it back then, and he was said these were rich people problems. So when she was calling for a boycott of Netflix, what he said on this clip was that he didn't like that she did that because he said she gave them no other option. So she basically said boycott Netflix, but she didn't talk about what they should do, and that's how we justified. I thought this clip was crazy because Steve basically said, and it started off very cool. Like it started off so calm, and it was just my brother, my sister, my brother, my like I'm out of love, out of respect, and then it just slowly started building. And Steve basically by the end of it said, "What am I?" He said, "I cannot, for the sake of my children and grandchildren, stand here when there's people counting on me and play a game with their futures for the sake of my integrity." So he basically said, because before this, Monique was saying, listen, there is the game, there's the cash game, there's the integrity game, and that should come first. And he said, I cannot afford to basically make less money for the sake of my integrity, which I was like, isn't that the whole point of integrity? Is that this is something that you're willing to sacrifice for?
It is, but he was saying before that, you're not playing your game. And that was his argument. This isn't your game that you're playing. You're trying to play your game in their game. So you can't come on a basketball court trying to play soccer.
Right.
This is their game. You have to understand that. So you can't demand that somebody pay you something. Why you just don't call somebody?
But can she demand that her kinfolk at least
stand up
support
for
her?
And that's what she did. And that's what
But
she
they
was
did
arguing.
not. Yeah.
That's what she was arguing.
I was shocked to hear him
She said
say it
that
like
I
that.
am not arguing this for me. I already made my money. I'm still going to make my money. And I'm going to make the money that I think that I deserve. And I'm going to call out the people that choose not to pay me what I deserve. But for the people that come up after me, I don't think that Tiffany Haddish would have got that deal that she just got with Netflix without Monique.
Right, but and it's like, so back in the day, so Monique referred to Whoopi Goldberg as the help, and basically made all these comments, like all these insinuations that these people who've turned their back on her are basically just,
supporting character, like
being bent over.
Goldberg
but
was a star in?
No, but I think it was more about like this. She's playing. She's not looking out for the culture. That's what I heard from
and
that.
she also hasn't been on stage in 30 years.
But that's what I got from Steve too. When on that show on Wednesday, when he was saying, he said, your husband can't be who he really is out here. Like he needs, like he said, we can't do that.
I know what exactly.
And I'm like, what do you?
meant.
But I was like, so you're proving. So that's what you're saying. You're basically saying like, listen, we just some, and we can't do that.
He's saying that this isn't our game. You can't argue with a billionaire about $1 million because he don't care.
Yeah.
He don't care. You can't have your husband, who is also your manager, argue your best interest with people that only want to make money.
Yeah.
They don't care nothing about your interests. They don't care nothing about the best.
Yeah.
They only care about the money. And you have to make a choice. Do I want to eat and still be able to do me? Or would I be hungry and argue against the people doing other people wrong?
That's
where Monique is. She's arguing that they're doing other people like this. It's not just her.
Mm-hmm.
Cat Williams came out and said the same thing. If you look at what Netflix gave Cat Williams and what he's done with his other specials on Netflix, he took a pay cut.
Yeah. No, I think he immediately commented that like she was right.
Yeah,
at the time. I think
right.
he was pretty quick for that.
You're talking about being able to go sell out arenas. Every time there is a Queen of Comedy tour, it doesn't make sense that she's not on it.
Oh yeah, there's one out right now.
He just confused. I just didn't know, and I listened to a lot of Steve Harvey's speeches, like on other stuff. I don't really watch his show, but I've heard a lot of what he's had to say. I've always thought he had a lot of very intelligent things to say, very sound things to say, and I felt like
I think he should have just
on
came
Wednesday
out and said
he in one breath said, Hollywood needs us. We are talent, we know our value, but also said you got to shuck and jive a little bit, which to me is one or the other. Like he basically said the exact same breath that, all right, but look, we do got to kind of bend over every once in a while, and it's like, dang. Like that's how you really are. That's who you really are.
The question is, how bad do you want to be on TV and in film?
Not that bad.
So if it's
not that bad.
So then the next question, because if it's not that bad, stop talking about it.
And then so then we're not family then. That's what I get out of that.
And that's what she was trying to argue. Yeah. Are you trying to tell me that my moral compass should be compromised just to feed my family? And he said, this ain't got nothing to do with morals. If you're talking about integrity, your integrity will make you do whatever you need to do to make sure your family eat.
No, I think what she said was, are we family and am I worth it to you? And he basically he didn't say it, but his response without saying it was nah. His response without saying it was nah. Right.
I'm not going to take that L for you.
So if y'all were in Monique's situation, how would you have handled the situation? First of all, would you have gone in overseas and promoted the movie for free?
No.
If it was any other regular job, you wouldn't do anything for free.
I understand that, but you signed up for it, and this is
how
the business works.
I was gonna say I don't know. My mind is that if you signed up for it, you do. I think whatever you signed up for, you do. You may never do it again, but if you signed up for it, you do it.
They actually are supposed. See, they wasn't trying to pay for nothing, which means she would have had to fly on her own.
She actually would have to come out of her own pocket. Yeah, I get that.
And you wouldn't be reimbursed
because
they didn't think that Precious was going to be a hit.
Right.
That was Lee Daniels' first movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get all of that, which is why at the time I felt very kind of like you signed up for it. But the fact that all this has kind of painted this in a very different light to me, a very different light. I never called it rich people problems or whatever, because I don't care what tax bracket you in. You don't get to that tax bracket if you don't care about it. So I don't really care how much you owe me or don't owe me. If it's my dollar, it's my dollar. If it's my million, it's my million. Like, I treat it all the same. But the fact that this is genuinely how somebody like Steve Harvey feels when he even said himself, like, he knows who he is, or she says she knows who she is. She knows her worth. She knows her reputation. But to me, the way Steve is talking, it's like you don't know that. Like, you feel like you're scared.
I think that in especially now, and we've seen with Steve, like, Steve was that guy. Mm-hmm. Like, Monique is like Bernie Mac. I had the show. I had the success. And when they didn't want to give me what I want, I'm going to argue against it, and I'm going to call it out. We've seen it with Bernie Mac with multiple shows on TV. He didn't get a TV show until late in his life. He was 40 already.
Yeah.
Steve had a show in the 90s. Sid had a show. They was on the same show. D.L. Hughley had a show. Jamie Foxx had a show. All of these people that came up, but we revere Bernie Mac as one of those GOATs. Why did he have to wait so late to get his recognition? And now everybody recognizes it. Now the question becomes, and Monique asked it before, when she leaves this earth, we're going to remember the work that she put in because everybody will get what they deserve now. We're not going to remember it in a moment because she's here. She's still arguing about it. I think that Steve made great points. Mm-hmm. But Steve, you're also talking to somebody that's not on network television, who was taken off of network television because she said that she deserved more. She was on BET.
Yeah,
she had a show on BET.
Yeah.
No, not just the Parkers. That was early 2000, late 90s, early 2000s. I'm talking about having a late night television show on BT, one of the highest rated and the only black female TV host on BT. Like, she had a show. They didn't want to help her book guests. They didn't want to expand the budget. They didn't want to put money into the show. They didn't want to promote it. Steve Harvey TV show get promoted on mad channels.
True.
And it's daytime.
Prime time.
Family Feud used to be, their host used to be white. It used to be
but
Drew Carey.
I meant before that.
Or before
it was
Drew
great.
Carey.
It was great.
Wayne Brady was on there for a little bit. And Steve Harvey has been on Family Feud for years. They promote it on every channel. They promote his TV show on every channel. Why she couldn't get that? Is it wrong for her to argue those points and to call out the people that are in power to do those things?
Not really.
No, but I think maybe the way she's going about doing it is kind of like damaging her image and her brand.
Yeah.
What way do they want her to go about it?
Quietly.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. She's a black
to
woman.
take her and go on.
So if I was Monique and I'm doing it the way she's doing, what would that do for you if I go away and be quiet?
I'm just saying, like, you can speak out about it, but I don't think she should be attacking everybody.
There's a way you go about it.
Nah,
Yeah.
you got
I
to.
feel like she has to attack everybody.
Yeah,
Like,
not
simply because she's a
publicly.
woman, because they're not going to take her seriously.
And they telling her that she wrong.
No, but then it's like, as a woman, you're going to come out here and then start attacking everybody, and then they're going to make you look like, oh, she's just getting emotional and stuff like that, instead of her just being
Yeah, she
logical
is
about
getting
it.
emotional.
But
Because
that's the thing, though.
you're talking about somebody that stands up for a whole genre
I know.
of people and women.
But at the same time, there's a way that you have to go about it so that way you can be respected or looked at it about it better.
She's a woman. She's not
No,
respected.
I don't agree with you. I don't agree with that.
She's
part.
not respected already as a woman.
Because
she's not
if I
respected.
don't get emotional, nobody's going to take me seriously.
But then that's
And people can't change things. So she may have said that, like, when people come onto it, like when social media catches onto it and they decide, like, oh, this is BS, like, studios do tend to move. They'll bend at least.
and then they'll
And
go
so
do the
she may have
research.
figured that there would be some. She may have been shocked herself that there was not the support she thought there was going to be. I
Until
mean, think
people start
about like
getting those deals.
think about like not Oscar So White. There was some other situation,
Grammys?
and maybe
Or
it
the
was the
Golden Globes?
Grammys, but you saw a lot of like biracial, multicultural unification around like I think maybe it was around women's pay in movies. Maybe it was. I know that
the Golden Globes, because that's where
yeah,
Oprah
yeah.
spoke.
And it's like, okay, well, if that can happen, then maybe she figured there would be somebody there to kind of, to back
That
her.
would have been the
I don't know.
perfect time for Oprah to say Monique was right.
Yeah.
But you're also talking about a billionaire who don't really care about how many millions of dollars.
Okay,
she has
but
to
are
pay.
you a billionaire or are you family? That's the that's where I think this just got
And-
kind of
and
like,
that's the question that she
what
asked.
kind of relationship do we have?
But how much onus do you put on somebody to answer that question in public?
In public?
In public.
I mean, she was humiliated in public, everything. So she
But
figured
if
she
you
would be
want her to go-
exonerated in public.
If you want her to go away in private, he probably gonna answer that question the way she want to hear it in private. He probably actually feels exactly how she feels.
He said
in
that.
private.
And that's what she called out on the show. She was just like, well, in private, you told me you actually put your hand on my shoulder. You said I was right. And here you did this and there you did that. So that's another thing, too, is that she's not really letting anybody just
Yeah,
act
she
like
ain't-
you.
you can't back off.
So you're putting
Right.
it all on blast, like everything.
Putting
Yeah,
every right.
yeah.
So she
Isn't
said
that
I
what
was
people want to
right. And then she went and told people that I
Don't throw
was
your
belligerent.
rocks and hide your hand. Don't do that because that's whack.
Yeah,
That is whack.
I agree.
Stand on it. You
I'm
said
shocked.
you got to
I'm
stand
shocked
on it.
and disappointed.
But it was a moment on TV, and I don't think it's gonna go away for a while, because now people get to see what it looked like when somebody who has a bigger star than you is wrong. We finally get to see that. Steve Harvey is a bigger star than her.
yeah,
But
Yeah.
he also hasn't been in a movie in a very long time.
True.
Like in a very long time.
But he gets money across all his different shows.
Yeah, he
and
got
and
mad
from what I've
jobs.
heard, I don't
He
remember
like
him
Nick
ever
Cannon.
feeling like he was hurting for anything. So to hear him say, "Well, listen, they could come for me," and to hear him kind of speak from that place of fear, that was crazy. For me.
Yeah, because they canceled his show.
Yeah, they can cancel, but they can't take away what you already earned.
After,
You know what I mean? Like they can't take
Yeah,
away
but
what you already got in your bank account.
if you're talking about the same people that write your narrative, they're writing the narrative like his show was failing. And it's not.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is, at what point are you just secure? Like, I got it. If this all goes away tomorrow, I'm cool. Like, that's something you
He
people
should be
If
there.
I
That's
lose
why I
all
was
of this
also thinking, I was
tomorrow,
like, he not
I'm all right.
He should be there.
He should. I think so.
And that's what she was saying.
Yeah.
You should be good, bro.
All right. Look, we only have a few minutes left. Do you have any other celebrity news? Because there's something else that came up. Nothing worthwhile. We ain't tripping over Demi Lovato, Paris, their family.
So we're not going to
No.
talk about YNW getting arrested?
No.
No,
Dang.
nobody knows.
Y'all messed up.
So,
Y'all messed up.
you
No.
said Demi Lovato went to rehab for what reason?
Again, no.
Yeah.
No.
Prayers for Demi.
No.
I want to talk about something else then. So we kind of touched on flu vaccines a little bit because it was flu season. It was very, very cold. And there's an increasingly anti-vaccine movement growing right now that's already got 127 million people following on Facebook for anti-vaccine movement. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is because Facebook always, well, I should say in the last 2 years, has been kind of charged with removing stuff. Because Facebook is now, I guess, bearing the responsibility for the stuff people post on Facebook since they have a free platform and basically saying you need to take more responsibility. So they've hired, I think I said there's over 100,000 people all across the world to try to find things that are fake news and try to stop them out or whatever. So now they're thinking about having to remove anti-vaccine groups and anti-vaccine types of rhetoric because it's being considered fake news. I don't think this kind of stuff is Facebook's responsibility, but people increasingly feel like they don't know what's journalism and what isn't. They don't know what's real and what's not. A lot of people get their news from Facebook or Twitter, and they say this is their news source. So there's an extra element now that these platforms have to be cognizant of what's on there. And since y'all are the youngest in the room, I would really like to figure out where, I want to just hear from you with unbiased judgment, ignore facial expressions and side commentary. I want to know where y'all get y'all news. I want to know how you feel about things that you see, whether or not you know they're fake, you feel like you know they're fake or know they're real, whether or not you look into it, whether or not you trust that it is, whatever it says it is.
I get my news. Sometimes I watch CNN, but a lot of the times I'm on my phone, so I'm either on Twitter. I'm spending a lot of my time on Twitter or Instagram, and I have a bad habit of just looking and reading headlines, and I like it and I save it, but I never go back to it. I'm trying to stop doing that. And as far as posting on Facebook, I think they should be able to regulate what's real, what's a real article and what's not. But however, you can't tell people what to post on their private accounts, on their personal accounts.
First Amendment.
Okay.
Exactly.
Most of my news comes from Twitter and Instagram also. If the issue is very concerning, I will go do more research. But typically, it's not that deep for me. It's a lot of celebrity gossip or stuff like that. But it's like real news. Of course, I'm going to go and do my research. That's probably because I'm a communication major, so we learn things like that in school.
Gotcha. So they tried to do a couple things. Like they tried to do an intermediary step where people could just flag it. And they were like, we'll give people, the ability to say, well, just flag it if this is fake or if this is spam or whatever. What happens is people started flagging a whole bunch of stuff that they just didn't like. So it would be genuine, but they'd be like, report, this is fake, this is fake, this is fake. So they were like, okay. So Facebook basically, just to calm everybody down, was like, well, hire people and they'll look for fake news or whatever.
And I think also a lot of people should just know to get your news from like reliable sources.
Right.
So you can't just believe a random link like, I don't know, www.hottopic.com. That's not reliable, you know what I'm saying? I just made that up, but it's not real. But I'm just saying, for an example.
It might be.
Right now.
In this particular climate, it might be.
Right. And so, go ahead.
I think like with this, see the thing with like, especially with social media, is that social media is the proponent of free speech.
Preach.
You can literally get on there, say whatever you want, whenever you want.
I thought that was the comment
As long
section,
as
though.
you don't incite violence, which is in the First Amendment, say whatever you want. Don't go get them vaccines. Stop putting that stuff in your babies. Stop drinking cow milk. Cow milk is weird. Look up the like.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Stop eating pork except for bacon because
Why is
bacon
it an
is
issue
seasoning.
that is on social media? Is that not what they do on TV every day?
And that was
Yeah.
what I was
What's
finna
the-
say.
but
What's
what?
the
Yeah.
issue?
But the thing is that now because the internet is the new TV though. Everybody goes on the internet to look on stuff. The world is on the internet now. So it's just like, oh, social media is like the presentation of like how people get their things through our means. So it's like, of course you're gonna go on like either Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, whatever site. You're probably gonna see something while you're reading some gossip or your friend's post, and you're like, this is some news. How it affects you, I don't know. And how you take that, I don't know either.
Yeah. But and this happens on TV too. Like they're not really cracking down on it in the same way that I think they're cracking down on Facebook. But people do feel like when they watch the news, they're getting completely objective, unbiased news, and they are starting to feel like, you know what, these networks need to be more clear about who's a journalist and who's not. A lot of the people we love to watch on CNN are the most popular people. They're not necessarily journalists in the traditional sense.
Yeah,
They're
most
they're
reporters.
opinionators. They're analysts, which means that
What's her name?
So,
Light skinned chick.
Angela
She's
Rye.
one of those.
Angela, right.
So Anderson Cooper's not one?
You could be her cousin.
No,
Sitting here staring at you, talking about
like-
Angela Rye. No, I'm still not pause. Like,
Yeah.
Anderson Cooper is one of those dudes like that go get in the field. Like he almost
yeah, he's
He
an
has a
investigative
degree in
journalist.
which-
he almost got
Yeah.
shot in Afghanistan.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like he'll
But-
go get in that field.
Yeah, and
Go
mind
get
you,
that
just
sand
because
in
you
his
have a
shoes.
degree doesn't mean that you're. It's really about what your role and your capacity is.
Right, and he a gay dude that argues everything.
Right,
You know
right,
what
and
I'm
some are
saying?
more
He will
clear than
argue
others.
Everything.
But a lot of it is so much bigger than just the anchors. It's like if you like take a quick shot at Fox News. I do this all the time. I look at CNN if something big is going on. Then I look at Fox really quick, and just the way they do everything is different. They could have like people there to argue. They'll have a really really smart Democrat, a really dumb Republican, and they'll just let them have it. It's like obviously one person's going to lose or not. On the other side, they'll do the same thing. Like during Charlottesville, they had people interviewed off to the side who were like, "It's not a big deal. I don't really know what's going on." They made it seem small because they were only covering like the outside of the riot. They never actually showed you the riot. Whereas CNN, you were in there with the cameras watching the blood fly. Like it was just very, very different. So I feel like the only answer to this is for people to think.
Preach.
I really don't think you can get away from that. I feel like Facebook can exhaust its resources and hire as many people as it wants to. But if people decide that when they see something it's real and they act
That
on
is
it, like
only-
what are you gonna do about that?
Because that's like a waste of money. You put
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, granted, like you talking about Mark Zuckerberg got the check.
Oh yeah.
So it don't even matter. 100,000 people, I got hired.
Right.
I can
Right.
do it.
But it never ends. Like then, because you got to think all these people in other countries, they're having to search for like new slang that pops up.
Facebook?
Like they had somebody, there was a random country, not Guinea, a random little country that they were like, something terrible
New Guinea?
happened. It was like a terrorist. No. It was like a
It's like
terrorist
Guinea and
threat
New
that they're like,
Guinea
how did you
and
allow this
Pop
to
Guinea.
happen? It was something with a G. I'm not gonna repeat it because I don't know. But basically, they didn't have anybody on Facebook who understood that this random word was like a slang word because it's different languages. Like we're talking about an international. So anyway, I think it's an impossible challenge to
Yeah,
try to
that's
do.
whack.
We just need people to start using their heads.
It'd
I
be
think.
great.
Just start thinking.
Just it's free. Yeah,
What happened to thinking nowadays? Everybody just wants to go with the flow and just be like,
We
you
got
know,
the internet.
they accept what.
so
Yeah,
Facebook has to think for me. I'm not going to use AI to think for me. That's how the revolution starts.
Facebook
That's
and
exactly how it
Twitter
starts.
is the new thinker.
right.
That's why you're starting to think about all of the channels that you used to see, like Fox 5. Fox 5 used to be mostly news.
Yeah.
Like the news used to
Yeah,
be like
and news is
3
boring.
hours.
Yeah.
We're talking
Now
about,
it's like 1 hour.
wait, we're talking about Fox 5 or just Fox?
Fox 5.
Oh,
Like you could talk,
True.
you could start locally and then look at other
True.
channels. Like there used to be news all day.
Yeah, they're starting to change it a lot.
News is boring. So you get analysts to talk
Debates.
about interesting things
Yeah.
that aren't necessarily news.
Yeah.
you mean
So that's why you get most of the shows on Fox and everybody that's whack that's
mean
on
cops?
Fox.
Just debating.
No, I'm
everything
talking about
today.
like Fox. So you got Fox 5 and then you got Cable Fox. Cable Fox was only news all day for no reason. That's mad boring.
Wow.
That's
That's
boring.
true. That's true.
But then you get people like Megan Kelly.
People wanted
when
to
she
watch
was on
people.
there,
Yeah,
like-
they
Wasn't
wanted to
that
watch
just like
people
CNN,
debate.
though? CNN was just doing the same thing like a couple years back, like around like 2000.
Yeah, it changed. It definitely
Yeah,
changed
but then you
across
put
the
people
board.
like Anderson Cooper, who's like an analyst that will go get out in the field.
But there's also
has
Don Lemon.
Like he has the skills of a journalist. But no, I'm gonna just get on here and I'm gonna talk. You got Don Lemon. You got a
Chris
bunch of other
Cuomo.
people.
Well, I love
like,
Chris Cuomo.
It's other people, but news is just whack.
Yeah,
So they rather put it in your phone.
right.
True.
So, all right, we only have a couple minutes left, and I want to get final thoughts from everybody. Final thoughts going into next week, going into
Trump about
Monday.
to win. It about to be disgusting.
If
Trump
we don't
gonna
win.
win.
George Bush.
And like, I feel bad for Ricardo because none of his candidates gonna win.
Go ahead, Kyle. Kyle.
Final thoughts for me. I'm gonna go back to gun laws. If you have a gun, if you want to carry a gun, just use it wisely and get, at least go to a gun range and shoot it around. Get some training before you just go out there shooting at people.
Smart Jazz.
Going back to the whole debate with Gucci and things of that nature, everybody just think for themselves. Let's not just do a fake boycott for 3 months and then be like, whatever. Let's actually make a change.
Good stuff.
If y'all are really about that woke life, really be about it. Don't put this on
That's
for show.
good. That's well said. I like that. All right, so we'll be back on Monday, same time, same place. However, I got a good little tidbit for you going into the weekend. Thispersondoesnotexist.com is a really cool new website. So since you're talking about AI and people taking over, go to this website. It automatically generates new faces all the time. So it's a good little interesting study in case identity for anybody who's afraid of the future. So we're going to put Ricardo on here in a minute. And we'll see everybody on Monday, same time, same place.